It's the most wonderful time of the year. You win some, you lose some. Wrong key, but it's all good. We move forward. What's up, you guys? Hello, and welcome to another episode of the SBL Podcast, the Scott and Ian Show. Let's go. Yes. Oh, man, look. Super excited today. Pretty excited most days, but let me tell you, today we have something so special. Scott and I got to interview the legendary John Patitucci. Do you know John Patitucci? I fell in love with Patitucci's playing in the 90s with a record called Heart of the Bass. He is so prolific, an incredible upright bass player, an incredible electric bass player, also composer. He's doing soundtracks now. Really an unbelievable musician. In this interview, he goes back to the piano and demonstrates stuff, right? He plays bass. He might even bust out his original BT6 Ken Smith bass for you. Not making any promises, but spoiler, he does. So check it out, okay? And look, Scott and I wanted to talk to him about a brand new record that he just put out called Live in Italy, featuring Chris Potter and Brian Blade. Are you kidding me? Two of the greatest musicians, three of the greatest musicians in the world. This amazing live record. He talks all about it. Talks about the process, what it takes to do a record these days. And this is a long one. Brace yourself, because John is into talking about all the things, right? Life and bass and being a great father, being a great collaborator, being healthy. All the things that you got to know about if you want to do this. And hey, check it out. We have a course on SBL featuring John Patitucci. We have several, but a brand new one just came out recently where he talks about some of his favorite music, which is New Orleans style funk music. And he breaks it down. Now, if you just thought of J. Pat as a swinging jazz guy, a swinging jazz cat, you got something to learn. Like I had something to learn. This course is incredible. He breaks down some of his favorite New Orleans style funk, and he shows you how to do it too. You're gonna write a bass line. You're gonna get to work with him, see him work with a band, and you're gonna get to work on a song with them through the whole process, and you take some ownership. You feel some ownership of this project when the course is done. It's a really, really cool course. So check it out on scottsbasslessons.com. Now hang on. Are you just listening to the pod and maybe you've never checked out the free 14-day trial? You're not platform side at SBL? Let's change that. Check out scottsbasslessons.com. It is the #1 platform in the world to get better at playing the bass. We want to help you get better at it. We're good at helping you get better at it. That's what we all want, right? So check it out. And now that's enough of me. Let's move it over to the interview with the legendary John Patitucci.
What is the film score thing?
The film score thing unfortunately came out in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. So it had a limited run in the theaters. And then the people who were the big wigs of the film company didn't really jump on the streaming thing. Latest I heard is Denzel Washington saw it and wants to make it into a 4-part Netflix thing, but I haven't seen anything of that. But the film is really important. My first film, I was very fortunate. An old buddy of mine, he's Afro-American Latin cat, Latino, Latinx they call it now.
Yeah.
He was, when he was a kid growing up in Queens and everything, he was a drug lord and a gangster. He became a pastor.
Wow.
And when I met him, he was already a pastor. He came to talk at my church and I went, this guy is amazing. And he was you'll never read about him in the paper because he's doing the real work, right? He's helping out.
Yeah.
And he was part of that movie called Emmanuel, which was about the Emmanuel 9, the people who were in the church in Charleston, and that kid, the white deranged maniac, came and shot up a bunch of people. Yep. He helped put that movie together. But this movie that I did with him is his first directorial debut. So dig this. This is heavy. He and his wife they do a lot of stuff, like when there's a crisis somewhere around the country, they go and they meet people and serve and try to help. So he developed this huge heart for Chicago. And the name of the movie is called Chicago, America's Hidden War. because more people were dying in Chicago than Iraq and Afghanistan.
Wow.
Americans.
Wow.
Black Americans mostly, and nobody cared because they were black, and the racism and the corruption. Chicago's famous for their corruption of government. That's where Al Capone set up shop many years ago. It's not really, it's not kosher. So, but because he was an ex-gangster and everything, he got these interviews with the real cats, the cats who had been in jail, the people who had engineered all this stuff for decades, who were now scared now because they've changed in their life, and they're looking at these little kids 12 years old running around killing each other with Uzis, So he mobilized all this thing. He got together with the civic leaders, the church, everybody, and for a while, when he was there and he filmed all this stuff, the violence went down 20%. Of course, then eventually he had to go home. And then, of course, it kind of crept up again. But he showed that if everybody actually works as a team, you can make a dent in some of this stuff. Anyway, the movie's phenomenal. And I got to do what I was my first, but he's my friend. And I had to write a boatload of music. It was an hour and 44-minute documentary.
Wow.
And I kept saying, man, don't put music here, because this is an important thing. That what they're saying is deep. I wound up writing 84 minutes of music for this thing.
What's the process of it? Somebody?
Well, I'm sitting right here in the ground zero. Right, this is my studio. I did all kinds of cool music as a bass player. You guys, you would love this, because I did weird bass choirs, arco bass choirs with harmonics and strange sounds for some crazy stuff. I did electric bass choirs.
Yes.
And
when you're doing a choir, for people that don't know, so are you just multi-tracking parts over parts?
Yeah. I do it all to a click, because it's got to sort of time out in a certain way that I see for a scene. But I started writing this first cue when I just dug it, and I took out one of my vintage basses, which I will not say what it was, but it's the kind that you love. And I started playing this little thing with tense, and then I got Nate Smith to play on it. Isaiah Sharkey played on it. Jimmy Green, the great tenor player, who's also who lost his daughter in the Newtown shooting in Sandy Hook years ago. People like my wife played cello solos. I had some string quartet writing that was real, that I did a pandemic session at John Davis's studio, The Bunker in Brooklyn. I did acoustic bass solo stuff, all kind of different things.
And was it intimidating to actually sit down with somebody hands you a documentary that's an hour, 90 minutes long, and says, okay, go. And you have
once I got it, it wasn't intimidating. What was intimidating was the first phone call. He had called me, he said, we talked about this a long time ago. Now it's time. You want to do this thing? And I was like, oh my God. And then he told me the story, and it's so important. And right in the middle, and it was right at, you're on the heels of George Floyd and the whole thing. In fact, there's a police violence montage in the film. And I wrote the darkest, it was insane. It sounded like a horror movie, because I was so gripped and so freaked out by it. He had to tell me to tone it down a little bit. It's too, he said, because he said maybe some of the parents of these people who got killed are going to see this movie. And you can't retry. He said it was too good, so I had to kind of but I got so into it. It was I was so passionate about it. But the fear was the first phone call. So I haven't heard from this guy in years. He calls me, because remember when I was talking about, because he didn't really know my music that much. He just heard that I was into it and blah, blah, blah. But we hit it off when he came to my church, because like I've said to many people, the African American community is the community that adopted me into their music culture and their life and their sociological network. So I bonded with this cat, and so he reached out to me. He goes, "Okay, I'm finally got it, man. I got a score that I'm controlling. I'm a film I'm directing." He goes, "You're gonna write the score," and I'm like, he told me what it was, and I was like, man, maybe you should get Terrence Blanchard, because it was so it was so important. And he said, no, I want you to do it. I said, well,
how long did you have? Did he give you a timeline to?
It was months. They were, because with film, they kept on doing different cuts of the film, editing. there was a constant processing. So we get the music laid in pretty cool. Then for like half the film, and then they cut scenes, they moved around. So I have this great engineer, Doug Epstein, who's incredible. In fact, bass players might be hip to his work because he did some of those famous records with Eyewitness with Steve Kahn, Anthony Jackson, and Steve Jordan back in the day, and then the ones with Weckl and Anthony Jackson.
Got it.
So he's a great engineer. So he went to school and got his, he studied orchestration and everything. So, he was really good at, I said, okay, now the cut has totally changed. This thing that we like the feeling of, we have to edit it to fit this now. And okay, so we chop here and do this. And he goes, yeah, maybe we could try this. And we were in it. So it took a while because the film editor, who was really gifted, but sometimes things took longer or they, it was it's the usual stuff. And we were a small team. Doug Epstein had to do the music editing as well as the recording. My wife was the music supervisor. My wife, who had just got her degree, like a little certificate, an actual professional certificate from Berkeley in music supervision. Boom. There it was.
She got a gig.
She did that, so that was that. And I know we're not, we have so many other things to discuss, but this was very meaningful for me. So I did a bunch of stuff. And also we got this guy, Mike Chiavaro, who's a nice bass player who moved to my town recently. And he's a really good bass player. And he came to this is so out, My wife and I we've been trying to purge some of the stuff from the attic. And so we do a garage sale. There's in Hastings where I live, Hastings on Hudson, very British sounding. There's a garage sale for the whole town. It's a village. It's like two square miles or whatever. So we do the garage sale. We got all this stuff on the driveway and we're hanging out. It's a couple of weeks ago. This guy comes up with his son. And then he's looking at me and he goes, wait a minute, aren't you? And I said, yeah, I am, John. And he goes, man, I'm a bass player. And I moved here recently. And he said, wow. So we're talking. And he works for YouTube also. He's an active bass player and everything, but he also has this gig. So he said, look, let me help you. So if you look at my YouTube channel now, it's screaming. There are shelves and this and that. And it's 4,000, 600 people subscribing. And, because we're into this thing, we decided we better mobilize for this new record. We better get things straightened out so that we can promote. Because this live record, is my first live record. And it's one of the records I'm most proud of, actually.
Wicked.
It's
Even
beautiful,
though
man.
There's a lot of studio records, but this one, just to capture what happens live when I play, with my favorite people.
Yeah. So why this one? Go on, Ian. What were you going to say?
Oh no, I was just going to ask when you set out to do a live record, is it something that you have already done in a studio with these same guys? I mean, you've got the great Chris Potter and of course Brian Blade on drums. Yeah. And when you set out to do this, is it something you've done before and now you want to do a live version of it, or is it something brand new?
You mean the compositions? The compositions.
Yeah, I wrote a bunch of new songs for it. I mean, there's even more stuff that was recorded, but the idea for it was spontaneous. The agent, my Italian agent, who's an amazing guy and real into the music, the last 2 summers, I've done these big tours in Italy when everybody's like, how did you get that many gigs? And I'm what? Well, this guy's amazing. And he's really into the music. He's real dedicated. So the first tour that I did with him was with Chris and Brian. And he said to me, look, I know we're going to do this big tour and I got all the gigs and everything, but listen, I have a friend who's a very good recording engineer and he has this boutique label where if you allow him to record and you find some stuff that you like from it, he does this boutique reel-to-reel audio file thing with all this artwork and everything. And if you let him do that and have his thing in Italy, you can have the masters and do whatever you want.
Wow.
I was like, that's amazing. Okay, let's do it. So he came only 3 gigs. The first gig was a big, like squares, 1,000 people. And it was it was the first one. He was just sort of, but he brought nice mobile gear. And then, so there was possibilities we saw. then the gig that most of the stuff is from is this outdoor gig in Genova, but it was covered. But it just had this nice acoustic sound.
Yeah.
And 99%, there's only one track from the final gig that he recorded. There was only 3 gigs that he recorded out of the whole tour. And the last thing is Without a Song is from Alba, which if you're a wine fan, Dolcetto di Alba is a really good wine.
Nice.
So anyway, so so this guy came, and then we, after the thing, we got the takes and everything. I started listening to it, and then I knew that I was going to go to John Davis at the Bunker. He was going to mix it, and then we'll master it. There's also the mastering facilities with Alex de Turk right on site there at the Bunker. So once I got it, it was a Bunker. We just took it. My thing, my home there. That's my studio home when I'm not recording here. I really try to do. Yeah. I mean, I work at the Power Station, all the studios in New York, but when I have a choice and when I can steer people, that's why we do the SBL things there. I think it's a great place to record. The people are wonderful.
And John's great as well.
Oh,
right?
John's amazing. He was my bass student when he was at college. And I was like, wow, this guy's, not only is he talented and really versatile, but he's freaking smart. Really smart.
Yeah, he's
too smart to play the bass, maybe, but he's incredible. He could do a lot and he's a great engineer, like an amazing recording engineer.
Amazing ears. Yeah.
But his feel, he could really play.
Yeah.
And he plays both instruments. I'm really proud of what he's done, and what
Where
he
were
is
you
doing.
teaching when you met John? Where did he?
Well,
was it
I was
Berkeley
teaching at City College, but he was going to the new school, and in the new school you can choose outside teachers. So he sounded me, and actually I met him at the Bass Collective when I was teaching. When I started that school in New York, that was affiliated with Drummers Collective. When I first moved back, I met him there.
Well, the Bass Collective, were you something to do with that?
I was the bass. I was the reason why they created it.
No,
I created it with them. Yeah,
holy shit, dude.
Rob and Paul from DCI. It was DCI. Yeah. We did the video. This is all. I got to credit Dave Weckl with all this because when we were first getting together and playing with Chick, he was saying, "Look, you gotta start making instructional stuff." Because I saw the whole drummer crazy fan thing, and I think, well, they're not going to be like that with the bass. Come on. He said, no, you do this and you see what happens. So we did it, and all of a sudden it opened up this whole thing with all our bass brothers and sisters, and it was cool, So
we've got just to let you know, John, that Ian and I geek out still about those video. I was going to say the DVDs, but those VHSs.
100%.
And I can remember that you were sat there with the piano. You had the super slick hair.
My daughters destroy me about those. I can't even watch them because the only thing now embedded in my ears is my daughters going. Just laughing at their dad.
Oh, no way, dude.
Hey, dude, was it the 80s or was it early 90s?
It was the 80s,
late
big
80s.
time, late 80s.
Late 80s.
And guess what? I employed Weckle's guy. There's a wonderful guy that works with him who does all his stuff, and he's also part of my YouTube, level up thing.
Yeah.
He's going and getting. I mean, we're going to start. I think we're going to start putting those up on my YouTube channel because a lot of people took stuff from me and then they started getting money off of it, and he's taking that stuff down, and then and he said he wants me to. I think he got a copy of the second one, so we'll see. But we're going to try to put them up on the YouTube channel.
Oh, very good.
So if you look at my YouTube channel now, you're going to be amazed. It's totally different.
I'm going to check it out.
It's really it has all my records on it too.
Cool.
What's the guy called that you were saying? What's the guy called from YouTube?
His name is Mike Chiavaro. CHIAVARO. And I'll tell you, he's in this.
Big shout out to Mike.
He's in this band. He's going to freak out with this. This is going to be great.
Awesome.
The name of the band is called King Canyon.
King Canyon.
Check it out. Canyon. It's a groove, it's very cool.
Are they on Instagram or
They're on iTunes. They just released a single called "Keep On Moving." Man.
Wicked. They'll be on Spotify.
Shout out
as well,
to Mike
won't they? Yeah, wicked.
Really, really good. Yeah,
absolutely. We should say as well that that people can check out your new album, the Live Trio album, on Spotify and iTunes and all of those.
Tidal also.
All of
I recommend the ones that treat the artist better. People are always saying, why don't you have your stuff, if you put it out, this one we did it digitally, no CDs.
Yeah.
Well, then you get everybody saying, are there any physical CDs? Are there any vinyl? So you can't win either way. But what I tell people is all the fans that say, man, you got to keep making records. We want to hear it. And I say, well, if you want me to keep making records, please purchase it on something where I get something out of it. Otherwise.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you actually, like now, because sort of like things have changed, especially over the last decade. What do you think the album is for in the kind of like new space that we find ourselves in for artists? Because some artists have actually stopped, like some of my friends that I really want them to produce albums don't do it anymore. Like I'll just shout out to one guy that like Gary Willis, for instance. Like I think he's about to put out something new last time I spoke to him, but I was speaking to him a couple of years ago and he was like, what's the point anymore? He was just like not feeling great about it. So my question to you, John, is like, for the artists out there now, new and older generation, like what does the album represent now to you as an artist? How do people think about them?
Well, I can only tell you what I think. And I think that because our world has lost sight of the importance of art, they tend to look at the music like commodities. Record companies look at it. An album is just a commodity. But for the artist, because I was gifted with the opportunity to start recording my music fairly young, in my mid to late 20s because of Chick, the album is your laboratory, man. That's where you experiment and you advance as an artist. And then you share that stuff with people. If artists stop sharing their work with people, then where's music? It's just an industry and it's not an art form anymore. It's just a way to make money as opposed to advancing the art and advancing hopefully the positive effects of art on society, because God knows we need it. Look what's happening in the world.
Yes.
Can you imagine if everybody stopped making records? Everybody. And they only made singles, which is, okay. I might release some singles too. And I was talking I want to talk to you guys about some of that too, but I will continue to, as long as I can. I mean, that's why I went independent. I've been independent now for a while. I did Brooklyn, Soul of the Bass, the Brazilian record, Mal de Fé, and now this one. I've got 4 records out on my label, my wife and I.
And have you ever regretted going independent?
The only thing sometimes is, but not really, because now we're learning how to promote using the net. We have all these people helping us, and I think it's going to work. We're going to get it. The goal now is to get the YouTube channel up so that it's monetizing. And we've already got way more than we need for subscribers, but we need those hours. So that's why, you gamble a little bit.
Yeah.
I have my records now. They're all there. I'm hoping people will also, if they want to see me make more stuff. I mean, how much does it cost on iTunes to buy the record? It's like $9.
Oh, dude, nothing.
Is
it even that? It might be less.
So if you want us to keep making records, and I'd like to make some vinyl. Like this one, people say, "Oh, why didn't you do vinyl?" Because Laura Blade. I have to huge shout out to Laura Blade, Brian's wife, who did the artwork. That's one of her paintings that we used on the cover.
Amazing.
It's maybe my favorite album, one of my favorite album covers I've ever had. My favorite in terms of an artistic, there have been paintings on several of my records, but this one is my favorite.
Yeah.
So she gifted us with that. And so I think it would be nice to have that in a vinyl. So the function of vinyl and the function of records when we were growing up is an experience. You held the record, you read the notes, you listened to the music, and you did it. You didn't just listen once or listen halfway through the thing and shut it off. That's another reason why on this one I didn't make it overly long. It's not even an hour. 52 minutes. So that, and what, it worked out because people keep telling me, man, I've been listening over and over to your record. As opposed to, I checked out your record.
Yeah. I think as well, like
one and done,
If you do it on vinyl as well, I think that at least for me, like I've recently actually got a record player. Do you guys call them record players, like a turntable?
Yes.
And for me, it's been I guess sort of like changing the way that I listen. I just consume the music differently when I sit and listen to a record. I kind of sort of like sit down with a bit more intentionality instead of sort of like this Spotify, like, you know, like it has its place, but I do enjoy kind of sitting down and consuming music in a way that's a little more intentional. So do you plan on releasing the album?
I'm thinking about it. And, you know, of course, everybody weighs in and goes, well, why don't you have a CD, blah, blah. Where can I get a CD? Or even though we've plastered the thing, you notice there's been a lot of promo on this.
Yeah.
And then people say, where can I get it? I'm like... we've been blasting Instagram, Facebook. We have a lot of followers. It's like, did you read? I mean, same people who are always looking at the stuff that I'm sending out. Where can I get it? Have you been paying attention?
And do you think that they're asking that? Do you think they're asking where they can get the actual physical copy?
Sometimes sometimes it's those folks, and I respect that. But the truth is, I don't want to print up a bunch of CDs that sit in my garage.
Is that the downside of printing? You're going to end up with sort of like 1,000 CDs.
In Italy, we might do the CDs because people always buy them at gigs. If you have them there, people will buy them at gigs. In the States, I'm not so sure. It used to be that way for me, and I'm gonna experiment with that this week because my electric guitar quartet is playing up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire at Jimmy's this week. I think it's the 13th, whatever the 13th is. That's, what is that? Wednesday? No, Thursday.
Yeah.
Thursday?
No. I've got no idea what the date is today. Dude, I'm the worst.
Thursday's Jimmy's. Yeah, Thursday's Jimmy's in Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
Okay.
And the 14th is the Jazz Gallery in New York City.
Got it.
I find when I go see a show, and if it's something that I love, and I'm not using CD players ever, but I will buy the CD because it's a way to support. Right. So nobody's buying CDs anymore, but if you've got it at the gig, it's just like you want to support. If you're impacted by the show, you want to buy a shirt, you want to buy a record, you want to buy a CD. So something that gives the audience an opportunity to support you is, I think, critical. And I think that's still alive in the States. At least it is for me.
I'm going to bring Brooklyn and Soul of the Bass. I don't have physical CDs of the Brazilian one. That was digital. Because that was another one of those deals where that we did the vinyl for Nouvelle, but it was his company and everything. And they do Nouvelle and they do all that. And then he gave me the record back within a few years, and I could do whatever I want, just as long as I didn't do vinyl.
Yeah.
But you know, it's also when you're doing it all yourself, like we are. Like you said, do I regret not having a label? Well, if labels were doing the PR that they did 15 years ago, then I would say, yes, I regret not having it. But nowadays, the big PR people that handle records, it used to be if you had a big PR push, like when I first started recording, maybe they could get you all over radio, maybe even get you a TV spot.
Got it. Yeah.
Forget that now for the music I make.
Now they ask you what your social media strategy is.
Exactly.
Now it's essentially a project manager that says to you, so what's your TikTok strategy?
Yeah,
and you go, oh God, I should probably. Yeah. And they go, what's your, so how many times are you posting? You posting 4 times a day on Instagram?
Right.
That's what PR does that now.
So, I mean, we're inching towards, we have a lot of presence now on the internet compared to what we used to. Like I'm trying to be communicative on Instagram and Facebook and put stuff up. And I plan on, with this new YouTube channel, I'm going to start posting some videos from my studio with some short little ideas about teaching and stuff.
Oh,
and
good.
And just little nuggets. And just to say, and also there's a tune recently I wrote for Brian Blade, a new little chord melody thing with the tremolo sound on it and everything, kind of like an homage to Brian and his, that Mama Rosa record, his singer-songwriter record, is a killer. But, so, I mean, I want to put out some more stuff, but I also want to put out some stuff about, like, that's what I love about working with you guys. I'm also able to put out stuff about the pocket, which... Right. That's what got me my career. My career didn't happen because I can play over changes. It really didn't, folks. There's a lot of stuff that I've played on that nobody will ever know. Hundreds of movies. I did at least over 100 movie dates, jingles, TV, things, record dates. Like a lot of people, you're in England, so you might have heard Everything But the Girl. That was a band that had some hits. I'm on Driving.
Yeah.
Driving was a hit.
Cool.
It's me and I'm doing a little, quasi Marcus on the chorus, little slap vibe. But that's me and Omar Hakim. And on the rest of the record, I think Vinny played too. So I did a lot of stuff, especially that was the good part about LA in those days, with the older players and the drummers that I work with. If you make friends with the drummers and they like the way you play and you listen and you can come up with parts, I'm always telling my students at Berklee, here's a daily exercise you should be doing. Put on, now you've got all these loops and stuff. You can pick anything, pick a tempo, pick a key, press play, and come up with a 1-bar or 2-bar pattern. That's a hook.
Yeah,
People will go, wow, I could have a song with that. And then do the B section. And if you're feeling really good, do a C section. But don't noodle. Come up with a bass line and don't play any fills. Yes. Can you do that? It's a challenge.
That's great.
Some tempos are harder than others. And that's what I used to do when I got up to LA in around 82. I moved up. I was like, I saw what was required kind of thing. And I saw what people valued. And plus I was coming out of Motown originally anyway. So that was I love that. So I just started doing that every day. I'd pick a different tempo. Those days, it was just my metronome and me. Even though I didn't have any, there was no drum genius at the time. So I just kind of did it myself and then picked different tempos because I noticed when I was recording a lot, by then it was all clicked out. Most of 99% was with a click. So you had to be able to make it feel great and stay with the click. So I got to play with people like Procaro, John Robinson, Vinny, Weckl, Ed Green, even when he was, boom, he got famous for R&B sessions. I even did when I first came in, I did some sessions with the Wrecking Crew. I mean, not with Wrecking Crew, but like Tommy Tedesco would be sitting next to me, and one time it was Hal Blaine. Hal Blaine.
Wow,
and
amazing.
And Jim Keltner and I became very tight, and he got me on a lot of records. So, again, I state this all the time, and sometimes I don't think people believe me because they saw all those things. It's all plastered over the net, me blasting away with Chick, playing over God and Mass. And that certainly was part of my life too. I mean, I play with jazz musicians. So if you can improvise and you're playing in a band with a jazz musician and you're laying it down, because if you're not laying it down, you're not going to get a solo, period. That's number one.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're not laying it down, you will never get a solo. So forget about that. If you don't love playing bass, don't play bass. Play something else.
Right.
But if you do love playing bass, and I did, and I still do, that's how I built my reputation.
That's fascinating. I love the idea as well of just taking sort of like a drum machine or a metronome and just practicing creating grooves with that and just getting working on your feel and how to lock in. Like something I've seen recently, I feel a little embarrassed to say it because some people, especially the people that run the company, might be cursing me because they've been sort of like messaging me for like the last sort of like couple of months, and I've been like, oh yeah, I'll get round to it. I finally got around to it yesterday. Is an app called Moises.
Oh yeah, I have it. I have it. Somebody hit me to it.
Holy shit!
Yes.
Yeah, it's great.
It's like freaking blew my mind yesterday. I just had this moment of like, what on earth?
Yeah,
how is this? Yeah. So, John, explain to people how it works. And just to point it out, anybody, I'm not affiliated with them. I'm not getting sort of like paid to say this or anything like that. It was just that the founder of the company was messaging me. I think Danny Moe, like hooked
Danny
us up.
Moe, I was, at Berklee, Victor Wooten and I were, we do visitations to different people's classes as part of our visiting scholar, whatever they call us. So we go to Danny Moe's class and he hips us to Moises and I'm freaking out. So, and that particular day, for some reason, we decided to throw That's the Way of the World into Moises.
Amazing.
So Verdine, right? So D flat major 7, right? And he's playing, and none of us, Victor and I knew this song, we learned it from the record years ago. None of us could have imagined. You isolate the track and he's going, beep. He's going, boo-dee-ball, beep. He's playing a freaking E natural
Oh, crazy.
On a D flat major.
Really?
He's going
on the D flat.
On the D flat major 7, he's going beep, A flat, D flat, E, D flat. So he's going deep, bo deep, beep. And there's the famous thing, when it goes to the G flat, and your heart and soul, like, and it goes to the 4 chord, no, because your love can go. That he's going, big time. Flat 7 on a major 7 chord.
Yeah.
Sounds amazing. Yeah. You would never want to change that. You wouldn't want to change it to the major 7. He's doing all this creative stuff that is stretching like, and Moises, you can hear every note.
Yeah, and it's bonkers, isn't it?
I freaked out. I said, okay, I'm calling him. So I call Verdine, right? And we're in the thing with the kids, they're sitting there. And Verdine answers.
Oh, amazing.
So now we're raving on the phone with Verdine. I'm going, Verdine, you unbelievable. You know what? And then he's going, oh, that's really, he said, I can't believe you guys are listening. I said, are you kidding? And Victor's talking to him and we're going nuts. And this guy also was there, that Ralph Johnson or whatever, he plays drums and he used to sing with the band too. Because Fred White, one of the White brothers, Maurice and those guys, Verdine, he only stayed in the band for about 8 years apparently. I didn't realize that he'd cut out that early in the situation.
Oh, right.
I mean, also the guy who played on Donny Hathaway Live, one of the most funky, ridiculous drummers I've ever heard in my life.
Insane.
So, but this other guy was a drummer for all these years, and I'm guilty of I just think of Fred White. Earth, Wind & Fire, that's it. Fred White is my man, But this guy, he's been around for a long time playing with them. So he was with Verdine. So he got on the phone and, and he was talking to us too. And it was just incredible. Moises,
Moises. Yeah, so if anybody doesn't know what it is, just like heads up, it's spelled Moises. You can get it in the App Store. And it's essentially like an app that you upload any tracks into. So like any tracks, you have to actually have downloaded them onto your phone. So if you go to iTunes, you can buy like a track for like 99 cents or whatever it is. It downloads onto your phone and then you upload that into Moises. And then in Moises, you've got like a little mixer and you can remove the vocals.
Yeah.
You can remove the drums.
Within reason. Within reason. The old track, when they recorded in the same room, there's going to be bleed.
Yeah,
that's cool too, because you really hear the recorded sound a little bit like,
exactly. Yeah, you hear the things that you wouldn't normally hear, and then you can move you can remove certain things from the tracks, which means you can, if you wanted to, for instance, like yesterday, for instance, I spent an hour playing with Poogie Bell. It was great. Thank you, Poogie. Yeah, thanks, Poogie. I spent an hour playing with Poogie Bell. It was great. And but then also, if you're listening to a track, and to John's point, you want to hear what what the bass player actually played on the track, you can pretty much just isolate the original bass track and hear it. It is incredible. My mind
blowing, right?
Mind blowing.
Can you imagine though? I recommend to anybody, if you're a fan of Earth, Wind & Fire, if you love, come on, Verdine White, amazing, and an amazing showman, performer, ridiculous.
Yes.
He's the only guy I know who can wear fingernail extensions and still play the electric bass. I don't know how he does that.
He's the only guy that you know as well, specifically a bass player, who can dance like that as well.
I know.
He's got the moves.
Jump, dance, sing, wail, groove his butt off. I love
an amazing video of him too as a young kid, like down on the ground, like playing a bass solo right in front of an audience. He looks like he's 15 years old.
Wow, I got to see that.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. And that's really what, everyone had said his name. Of course, I'd heard the classics, but seeing that video of him taking this bass solo, he's playing like an old like Telecaster bass, with the single coil pickup, and it's like, and
we all wish we had one of those right
into the bass. It's just so cool. And I thought to myself, sometimes I need to see that. I need to see the story, the evolution, the moment where you go, oh man, because I'm just used to the classics. I've been hearing them on the radio forever, but I've never seen them live. Man, seeing some footage of a young Verdine doing that thing, it was like, oh, I get it. He's been doing that his whole life.
Well, that's the thing too. That's why you do live records. That's why I did a live record, because the chemistry I have with those guys, for years, you know, and I thought, wow, when he said you can have a live record, I went, wow, with these guys? Oh my gosh.
Wow. Yeah.
A snapshot.
I actually prefer live albums, to be honest. Even when they are recording in a studio, I enjoy, like I've been enjoying recently, you know, the way that Snarky Puppy have recorded theirs, where it's in a studio, but it's live. And I'm sure that they record various takes and stuff like that. But because it's done there in the room and they're all there, I can feel like a different type of energy from the musicians. Like, are you going to do another? Obviously, you're going to do more albums in the future, John. But have you got a more traditional, like a non-live album up your sleeve in the future? And if so, what are you thinking about that?
I will do another record. I mean, I have all these different projects, and that's part of, you know, we're going to talk about some stuff too. But yeah, I mean, I have millions of projects and not enough money to do them. I mean, everything from. I mean,
is that a barrier? When you sort of sit there as an artist, you're like, okay, I want to release an album, let's say next year. Is the next thought, oh shit, that, you know, I need a budget,
of course.
I need to, like, all of that.
Yeah, somebody like me who's a little musically schizophrenic. I've got, like, I want to do another record with the guitar quartet, you know, that the combination of the soul grooves, the real grooves. It's not smooth jazz at all.
Yeah.
It's those grooves, and then also playing jazz, like with these guitar guys who are amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
This week it's Nate Smith on drums with us, and he's nasty, unbelievable.
He is.
You know, I'm spoiled. It's either Brian or Nate plays in that band.
Oh,
yeah. So, and then so I'd like to do another record with that. I'd like to do more records with Chris and Brian, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, we never did a studio record either. I did the studio record that sort of, you know, that started me on the trio thing with no chords was the Remembrance, the record with Brian and Joe Lovano. So, but I'd also like to do a record with. I have all these different projects, and I've been thinking about a lot of different stuff. Also, my chamber writing, and that's the other thing about writing for film and stuff that's cool, is like I put up a reel and I have a lot of stuff that I wrote with strings and different stuff. I love that. Another acoustic jazz record. I would love to do different, you know, I have a lot of things with that. Danilo and I would love to do a duo record, piano and bass.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. And that would be basically live anyway. Even if it was in the studio, we would just be all kind of different stuff.
You'd be actually improvising. Yeah.
A while ago, Julian Lodge sounded me on doing some stuff with him, so I'm hoping we can start playing live a little bit to see what's going on with that.
So cool. He is incredible.
He's great.
He's an incredible talent, isn't he? Like, he really is. Like,
I mean,
have you seen the stuff that he did with that trio down in LA?
Jorge Roeder came over to my house to study a little bit with me some years back, and I really loved his playing then, and he's even expanded a lot, you know. But he's great, and you know, there's a bunch of different people I'd like to do stuff with. You know, I really feel a bond. Also, I've done some stuff with Steve Jordan here and there. I'd love to do a project where he's the drummer.
I
love him. And I'd like to do something, you know, like some of these young guys like James Francis and stuff. I'd like to do some groove stuff, and maybe also Nate and I have talked about doing something where he and I, you know, co-produce something.
Got it.
Even with some great singers and stuff like Michael Mayo or some, you know, people who can really, but have different grooves, but still be, you know, have that jazz thing in sensibility and, like, you know, that creative expression.
It's in the DNA.
Yeah. And grooves DNA, too, but also, you know, not to just try to copy what everybody's doing now, but because we have a take on it, you know, and shoot, people my age, we were around the first time that stuff happened in the 70s. You know, so I was there for the first part, and now I see how everybody's taken that and stretched on it and everything. And so that's what makes Pino so special. Pino's a little older than me, so we come from the same time period. And when I heard him play, I went, that guy. And at first I didn't even know his name. You know, I heard him on a Paul Young record and I freaked out.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy.
So we love each other a lot. And I wish I could see him more. He's so busy, and I'm not exactly sitting around on the couch either. So
John, can I ask you a question about composition.
Yeah.
Because before we even got on the call, you were playing piano back there, and it was so lovely. I'm hearing, these tunes on the Live in Italy record. And you're talking about being musically schizophrenic, right? All these different projects, all these different things, all these ideas in your head. I want to know. And for people listening who are wondering, ooh, I would like to be an artist. I have something to say. Maybe they're a bass player, they're a side musician in a thing. Maybe they're but they have this inkling that they want to be a composer or they want to write. I want to know from you, what is the first thing that comes to your mind that you play or that you do when you are writing anything? Typically, what's the first thing you do?
Well, over the years, there's been different modes. I've written a lot of stuff at the piano through the years.
Yeah.
And what I was playing, by the way, was I played a gig with John Beasley's Monkestra. He's got that hip band that, and so he did a really kind of a Dilla version of Around Midnight. It's on one of his records. And so Terry on Gully was playing. We played last night at Dizzy's in New York City.
Oh, wicked.
So we did like one rehearsal the day before, and then we did a sound check rehearsal, and bam, and it's the small group version of the Monkestra. So it was like John, Terry on, and I, and then it was like 1, 2, 3, 4 horns front line.
Oh, amazing.
And it was really good. It was fun. But this Dilla version, and I don't really get to, unfortunately, even though I love that style and I feel comfortable with it, and with Terry on, he can really play that stuff. So it was a blast. We played this thing, and I was like, this is another side thing, and I'm going to just throw this out there, and, maybe, and I definitely want your opinion of it, but, after all these years with Yamaha, I'm going to do a signature 4-string bass, and it's going to be like a P bass.
Cool.
Wow. Amazing.
And I have a 5-string this broadcaster thing that they gave me. I have a 4 of it too.
I freaking love that bass.
That's a great
really
bass.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great bass, but I want to go deep in there. And I know people have been doing it. You see, everybody's doing a jazz bass. So that's kind of covered, and I love that, But anyway, so I brought the broad bass 5-string. With the act, and it sounds like it's got that gritty. There's one thing that he wrote that, first of all, I used it on the Dilla song, the Dilla version of Round Midnight, right? And he's like, and it's pretty slow. It's like about there. So he's, and he's killing it, and I was playing and really having a blast, right? And it's a thick sound, that broad bass, because it can be active or passive.
Yeah. And what do you use it? Do you put it in passive or active?
With that bass, and this is one of the things I'm going to do with my bass. This will be a defining thing about the bass. I want it to sound great passive, like my old Fenders or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, you said it.
I said it. I've got them. I admit.
There's no
do have them.
Cat's out of the bag.
I do have them.
I'm just gonna plug my laptop in. Wait there.
Yeah.
Speak among yourselves.
So I mean.
So you want to get that passive game together with the new 5.
But this bass, actually, that broad bass, I have one that they gave me that's a 4-string that's totally passive.
Yeah.
And it's killing. Actually, it's really loud. And a big sound, but I don't want the jazz pickup. I want to make it passive with the. Now, Ken DePron, who's been there forever, and we've collaborated. We were the ones who designed the pickup for the JP2, which is a nice sounding preamp and everything.
Yeah, for sure.
Dude, what's the process of developing a signature bass? I don't think I've ever asked anybody.
Well,
I hang around with a few people with signature basses, but I'm I've never said what's the process?
Well, and I've been around them so long, we've done a bunch of different ones, now, and, sometimes I'll hear an old one and I'll go, wow, I like that. And do I still have one of those? And it's like, there was one that had my actual signature on it that I'll tell you a funny story about that.
What, one of the early Yamahas?
Well, it wasn't that early. It was the one that was kind of grayish or purplish tinge, and it had my name written on the headstock.
Yeah. I remember
Now, Eric Coombs, who plays with Lettuce, who I knew him when he was a kid, You ever heard Lettuce? That jam?
Sure, of
really
course.
good.
Oh yeah, dude.
Eric
yeah.
has one of those, and he plays it in that band.
Oh,
he's the only one I know
wow.
who has that one. You know, a lot of people have the JP2. So with that one, see, Yamaha, a lot of people don't know this. They had these really insanely great luthiers over a period of decades. There was a guy named Leo Knapp who designed that bass, and he was born out of the San Francisco luthier thing. You know, you had the famous Hideo Kamamoto, the guy, the king of guitar and bass. He wrote a book on it, right? So he's out of that era, but he stayed with them for a while and then he left. Then we had, there was a guy named John Gadesi who was around for some of the JP2 stuff. And now, the JP2, what happened was, I was thinking, you know, because I had this thing, you know, because I grew up with Fenders, old things, and I wanted a bolt-on. Now they came up with that 6-bolt thing, which is amazing. I think it's really because I wanted my bass to not sound like one of those Wayfish 6 strings that sort of, you know, they don't really have the fundamental. Like I remember,
that bolt-on has,
right. So,
and was the original JP a neck through?
Yes.
It was. Okay.
That was the trend.
JP.
Because the Smith, I had the Smith. Was neck through.
And
so I went for the neck through, and then I realized I'm really pining for that thing, that foundational thing that I had that made me want to play the bass, Jamerson.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, let's do the neck through, and we even used the woods. We used alder and ash and maple, and we were really pointed about this, and that JP2 still I use it. I used it on this live record. I got a new one.
Did the woods change?
Is that on Molly?
From the JP1?
It's on all the electric stuff on the new record. That's the JP2. So that's the one with the cutaway for the slapping and the preamp is what we designed. Ken Dupron came to this studio decades ago, and with a spectrum analyzer. So say, okay, where do we want the bumps for the bottom? Okay, let's do it by ear. Okay, that sounds good. Let's try this. Nope, that's too much. Oh, that's too little. You know, we did the mid range, then we did the highs. You know, the treble. Then we sent to Japan. They made the preamp, and boom. And that one has. Those are the Yamaha pickups, and they're great. Now, things keep developing, right? And one of the things that I'm blown away by, and I tried to get him to do a model. So far, no go. That big semi-hollow 6-string is the only active bass I've ever played that can tangle with those old passive Fenders. Like I did this with the Shootout. Like I went to a little gig in a place, and
did you
I'm
take
years
both
back,
bases?
and I brought my old, PJ. And I had this sucker, and I thought, let's see. We're playing groove music and everything. What happens if I go from the passive to this one and I go, oh, I missed that thing. I plugged it in. It was bigger than the P.
Wow.
And those are Aguilar preamp and pickups.
Yeah.
So that thing on Brooklyn, that bass sounds like a freaking house.
Yeah, so if anybody listening to this wants to check that out, it's on Brooklyn. Like John's record's called Brooklyn, and it's a big bass,
but it sounds like
it's basically like a massive jazz guitar, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what it looks like. The idea
behind it,
but it sounds like the bottom on that bass is killing.
Is it when you're playing it? Is it obvious in the sound of it that it's a semi-acoustic?
There's some things about it that are like that, but it's just the whole thing working together. This kid was amazing. He was one of the luthiers in the line of these guys that they kept getting that are great
at Yamaha.
And then a big guitar company finally stole him. I forget.
Oh, really? Did they take him? Yeah. And just to shout out as well, if anybody's sort of like thinking Yamaha, like they've always had some like amazing luthiers working for Yamaha, even like right back in the day. The
guitars,
like
some of the guitars, like my brother's guitarist, I gave him one of their 335-ish things. It's unbelievable. And the steel string guitars.
Schofield plays. Oh no, Schofield plays Ibanez, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He plays an Ibanez, well, doesn't he? Yeah. super interesting.
So yeah,
John, when you're
the design thing, it just was born out of I'm hearing different things. That's why I changed from Ken Smith. I jumped over to Yamaha in the first place. There were some sounds that I was hearing that I needed that I couldn't get. The Ken Smith.
Well, the Ken Smith. We've talked about this, Ian, haven't we? The Ken Smiths sound like a Ken Smith.
Yeah,
that is like they have their own sound, which is fascinating in itself.
And only like a Ken Smith.
Exactly. You're really. I mean, you've got one or two sounds max. Yep. With my other instruments, I have a selection. And also they have more of that feeling because of the bolt-on. They feel more like those classic instruments that we all love.
Yeah. Dude, by the way, that old Smith of yours came up for sale on like Craigslist or something, or Talkbase.
I have it.
What? I have old one? Did you get it?
I didn't buy it either. It was given back to me.
No way.
No way.
Hold on.
Very cool.
Hold on.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. And he leaves the chair to retrieve it. How lucky are you and I, Scott Devine? Come on.
Cursed the man that bought that bass, and I didn't know I was cursing John.
Well, no, maybe the guy that bought it gave it back to John, man.
Yeah, no, he must have. Yeah, so somebody must have bought it and given it back to John.
Oh, man.
That is fantastic.
Oh.
She's still here.
Holy crap.
John, do you ever play that anymore? Do you write on it or do you gig it?
You know what? It still plays.
It even sounds like a Smith.
It still plays great.
Yeah.
I don't know about the.
Do you write on it or play it out?
No. The electronics was the thing with me. After a while,
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Was it the sound of the electronics? Got it.
Yeah. And he's nodding yes.
Acoustically, it's great, and it's still it has this feeling because this thing was beat to snot. I mean, I took it out on the road for years.
Yeah. Scott talks about this thing with the Smith that's similar to how you feel about a fretless, Scott, that there's a nasal character in the upper mid-range that you just can never get rid of, that you either have to embrace or leave at the side of the road. You know what I mean?
So, dude, how did you get that? How did you steal that? It was my bass. How did you get it back?
Okay. Howard.
Fascinating.
And, man, it's still in great shape, by the way. Look.
Yeah, amazing. I feel like you're falling back in love with it on the pod as we speak.
I'm not. Yeah. I love it. But, I have to say, and I don't, not just because I'm a Yamaha artist, but the reason I parted ways with them is they didn't want to let me have input into the design of the instrument.
Got it. Okay. Yes.
And I know what I want more than Ken does.
Yeah, of course.
And I will have what I want because I'm the one out there playing the bass.
Yeah, you're the artist.
I have to have it.
Yeah.
Right. And that sounds very arrogant, but I'm just saying, practically speaking, if you're out there playing the bass, you know what you need.
Yeah. You want what you want.
And that I can't take away that instrument is part of me too, and it helped my career tremendously at the perfect spot where I needed it to.
Oh man, but it's so great that you got it back.
Well, let me just tell you the guy's name. Harold Good, I believe, is his name. Harold. I just want to make sure I say it right, because this guy is a really very successful businessman, great guy.
Yeah.
He works with Marcus Miller. I think he.
Harold.
Yeah, Harold.
I know Harold. I know Harold. Okay.
Harold was a big fan of the Chick band, And, Marcus and I really love each other, and he's a little older than, he's maybe younger than me. I'm not sure. We're the same age, roughly. He might be a little younger. And so Harold, at one point I sold this years ago to a collector through this little boutique bass shop out in Pennsylvania somewhere.
Okay.
And I got a lot of money for it. And I needed the money at the time, too, because all of a sudden the kids came, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, 2 daughters. That's expensive. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really playing it. I had moved on. I was designing all these instruments for Yamaha. It was working out for me. And those instruments became a big part of my sound. And they are my sound. This was my sound. And some people say, why did you go back? It's like, I can't. Honestly, I love it. It has its place. And I swear, I never hardly pulled the thing out of the thing. And man, it feels incredible. I have to give it up. Mm-hmm. But sonically, the electronics in that bass don't work for me.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
There was a window where it was working for certain stuff, but that window closed a long time ago.
Yeah, it was time to move on.
These other ones, like you hear the new record and you hear the sound of that bass, that works for me.
Sure. And it is a very different sound. Yeah.
I mean, and that's one, it was made in Japan, but that's a new one. It wasn't even it wasn't a prototype. I just said, can you send me a new version of my red bass? I used to have a butterscotch. The old butterscotch
remember the butterscotch,
and the red came together. They were delivered at the same time.
Cool.
And at some point, I had a really good student who really needed a 6-string, and I gave him an incredible deal on it because the butterscotch was sitting. I was playing that. I beat that red one to death. It got it's like, so I retired the red one. I still have it. So the butterscotch comes, and I started playing it. The reason why I use it on that live record too was partly for Chick, because the reason I had that butterscotch sent to me was like, okay, we have all these things coming up, reunion gigs with Chick and the electric band. He's all fired up. He wants to go out on the road again. We're going to do this thing. I want a new bass that's not been beat to snot, just to have it like, and then it came and I went, wow, this feels good. And then so I used it on that tour because I thought, you know what? I was supposed to be using this for Chick, and I want to this is another way to remember.
Yeah, so I think that's really sweet.
So back to this, I'll finish this. I'm crazy today. I'm so excited to see you guys. It's been a while. But so, I kind of release the bass, right? I sell it, gets great bread for it. And then I heard some years go by and I heard it was sold again. Somebody else bought it, or that's when Harold bought it. Harold decided he was going to buy it to make sure that it was in the right hands. And, he had it, and Marcus, I don't know. I think Marcus might have tried it too, but they had it. Harold had it. So then Chick dies, right? And we're all shocked. And we're just like, oh, it was just crushing. So the band does a big YouTube thing. Remember that? We did a broadcast. Harold was on the call. He heard us talking about it, and he was moved. And he called me like the next day or something. He goes, you know what, man? I'm going to send your bass back to you. And I said, Harold, man, you paid money for that. You paid a lot of money. You can't. He said, no, man. That's part of your history. It has to stay with you. Isn't that beautiful?
Shout out to Harold. That's
so
awesome.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I have to say, it's kind of neat because when I pick it up, it still plays like butter. And it hasn't been really dealt with in a long time. So
it's like, for me, it is one of those, there's like a few classic basses that, and this is just like personal to me, I guess, for my age at the time when I was like late teens, sort of like late teens, there was a few individuals out there that played basses that were just part of their personality, part of their persona. For me, that was one of them. Same way that, like, when I think about Victor Bailey, that Penza bass was no Victor. Do you know
Victor Bailey? I'm sorry, the Pensature thing.
Exactly, that Pensa bass it's the same thing. It's like it's just part of their personality.
Or Stu with a Factor.
Yeah.
Yes, Stu Ham and his Factor. Yeah. And the Kubicki.
Yeah, right? I was just going to say the Kubicki, right? That comes to mind. Or when people started playing Steinbergers, there was like, Jamaluddin Takuma. He had the Steinberger headless, and he was, funking his way out into the hearts of millions, Just incredible attitude and playing.
Yeah.
So it's in pristine
Do you think
condition,
the bass is going to happen? The new
and
signature bass.
But nevertheless, you talk about designing, and I got into designing, and I started to realize, well, what do I need? What do I want? This was somebody else's creation for them. This was what Anthony needed at the time, and then even he changed. He kept changing.
Yeah.
Everybody evolves in what they need. So that's what happened to me. I, like I say, the new Butterscotch on the record, I feel like, and the way John mixed it too, I feel like it has a nice clarity up. It goes up in the top nice, but the bottom is sturdy. I don't know.
Okay. That's what you want. And
John,
it sounds as well. Go on, Ian, you take it.
Oh, I was just going to ask you, I want to still come back to this thing about writing.
Oh, yeah.
You talked about how you write maybe on piano, but let's do this. Let me ask you a more focused question. If you could speak to the bass players, there's a lot of bass players that listen to this podcast who might be thinking, I want to do something, I want to write. I want to know, how about this? When you pick up bass, are you putting on a loop and playing along and writing that way? Do you have a melody that comes into your head and you're writing melodically first? Are you grooving? Are you playing a melody? Where does that first initial spark for an ostinato come from? I want you to answer
in my head, what I'm hearing. A lot of times, if I'm away from an instrument, I'll just sing into this, and I have voicemails. I have fragments.
It's not even a bass in your hand.
I have fragments up the yin yang. But when I was younger, I did do a lot of stuff at the piano. And I'll show you something. Can you hear the piano when I play it?
Sure can.
Okay, so
yeah, man. Yeah.
I'm going to go over the piano. I want you to name me 4 notes. You each get 2 notes. Just pick 2 notes out of the sky.
Okay, C sharp.
Uh-huh.
You do one, Scott.
A.
C sharp, A.
G.
What's your last one? E. Oh, you guys that's easy. Come on.
Is that Superboy? Was that sort of like an A dominant?
That's good. So here's the notes. I ordered them that way.
Top line melody.
Let's see. Okay, so there's a process behind that. Obviously, I didn't wake up one day and just can do that. But what happened with me was I started off as an ear player. I'm very influenced by emotion and the feeling of sounds when they hit me. I realized, then I was made to learn how to read music and everything. But then what happened, you asked me something, and the pivotal thing that made me a composer was when I was in high school, there was a guy named Frank Samares in the Bay Area, great pianist. And he used to mentor us, and he showed me some voicings, my first voicings that sounded like a piano player.
And how would you distinguish a voicing from a chord, John?
Okay, so a chord is a chord. It's a symbol, or or somebody writes the chord out. A chord in root position is just a chord. Like when you hear, you can hear me talking over here?
Yeah.
Because I'm loud, that's why. So when people make the mistake when they first start, I'm going to learn how to play piano, and they play a root position voicing. That first chord I played, that's an E minor 11 or something like that, right? If you play it like in root position, there's nothing happening, bro. It's root position. Okay. So he started showing me like the shell voicings that jazz piano players play. The shell voicing is like a root, a 7. This was my beginnings. And that, so there's then maybe 9, 3, 5.
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah.
Then you, and I learned it everywhere. Because when he showed it to me, I was like, wow! like this is a kind of a vanilla, that compared to this, later on, you get to this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's also an E minor 11 with a 13. I started hearing, what happened was, he started showing me these little voicings, and there's like an A and B voicing. This was also in a book years ago by John Mahagan, and all these guys. And the A-B voicings were probably stolen from people like Barry Harris or, people that knew bebop, and then and it disseminated, and then some guys wrote a book on it, but they weren't the actual guys who really created the stuff, right? Sure. So he showed me that stuff, and I was like, wow. Like I got like moved by those sounds. Then it was like, and then I had David Baker for ear training in one of those Jamie Ebersol clinics in the Bay Area. My parents couldn't afford to send me. I got a scholarship. So I went to the thing, and all of a sudden I go into a class. I thought I had a good ear, right? I thought, okay, I can't read. I can play some jazz. My ears are pretty good, man. I go in David Baker's class. He goes, blam, sing. Some of the other kids obviously had been in class with him before. And he played one of those voicings, and they had to sing like, that you play that big E minor, and then it's ba da 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 da. Everybody's singing up and down the sound, and I'm like, uh-oh, I suck. And then all of a sudden he taught us how to, do that with a lot of different sounds. Then I realized, okay, that's why I did that thing on my video where I'm at the keyboard, because if you can't hear the difference between a seventh chord with a plus 11 and a seventh chord with a sharp 9, sharp 5, you could be in some trouble.
Right. Yeah.
Also, if you want to become flexible, like I really wanted to be, of course I wanted to groove and everything, but I also didn't like the either or proposition with a lot of bass players. Either they can groove or they can solo.
Right.
That's not a good thing. If you're a musician, you're a musician. If you're a bass player, you better take care of business. Like I said, otherwise you will never get a solo. However, when they give you one, you have to contribute. You can't just fumble around and skate and play a bunch of noodles. And it's like, what was that? Why are the other people so expressive?
Yes.
Number one, it's rhythm. Number two, you have to have different articulations. The worst thing that happened after post Jaco was that people got the wrong idea and thought that he just played short notes. We were all back pickup, like a and if you listen to him, he's so much more expressive than that.
Yeah,
he was also the melody king.
Yes.
So why do you just focus in on one articulation that he played when he did a lot of other stuff too? He was a musician.
That's the easy way.
Capital M. Yeah, the easiest thing to copy is bucka, but then try to go like these melodies.
Yes.
Come on, right? It's a musician. He's a musician. And so I wanted to be a musician. If you go back to even on the acoustic bass, before the electric bass was even created, Ray Brown, when he came, all of a sudden, you have other bass players who were good bass players, but then when Ray Brown got with Charlie Parker, all of a sudden, when it came time for a bass solo, there was creativity and expression. Wow, listen to that.
Yeah.
So it's not an either or. Ray Brown had the nastiest quarter note. Nobody could swing harder than that.
Right.
But when given some space, music came out.
I know. Absolutely.
Music. Yeah. Not YouTube. I'm doing this thing really fast.
Right.
Music.
Yeah. Did you ever get to hang out with Jaco, John?
I had a wild encounter in 1986. So he was already in trouble. I was about, because it was before December, so I was probably 20. I was turning 27 that year, I think. I was with Chick.
So you were. So I was going to say. So you were like still. You were super heavy. Yeah, you were.
I was playing with Chick. It was the Chick, Wayne, and Al tour. This is where I met Wayne on that tour as well, 1986.
Oh wow, wicked.
So the tour was like Chick's band, Wayne's band, which, by the way, had Tommy Breckline, Gary Willis, and Mitch Foreman in the band.
Yeah.
Great band. Playing the music from Atlantis, killing. So I'm playing with Chick. I meet Wayne. It's incredible. And Al DiMeola opened. It was Chick, Wayne, and Al. Al DiMeola would open the solo acoustic guitar. Then either one of us would play. Some would open from the other. We would rotate. So we get to New York. We were going to play the Pier. I'm very excited because I'm originally a New Yorker, and at that point I was living in California. So anytime I got to play in New York, it was an exciting. And here we are, big concert in the summer on the Pier, big stage. Wow. So I hear through the Vine that, because Jaco was kind of on the street at this point, which was heartbreaking, that earlier in the day, before our sound check, when Wayne was sound checking, Jaco came before their sound check, and a bunch of street people, they had put his acoustic 360 on the stage, and the roadies were like, "What are you doing?" so I'm going to play America the Beautiful tonight. And they're saying, well, not really. And they took the stuff down. And so he was around during Wayne's sound check, and he was shouting, or something happened. And so I heard that, and I was crestfallen because he was one of my heroes.
Yeah, of course.
I still love, I mean, you know, there's so many things we could talk about. We could spend hours talking about him. I love him. He was like a shooting star. He went, and then he was gone, you know, too soon. And so I get to our sound check and I'm like, wow, I wonder if he's still around, and how am I I love this guy. This is going to be heartbreaking to see him in such a condition, you know? And I really, you know,
and was it something at that time as well? Was everybody very well aware of it? Like, were musicians?
Yeah, people was aware that he was really struggling, because he was on the street. He was walking around without a case with his bass. And in Manhattan, he was seen at the basketball court down by the Blue Note all the time playing, because he was a great athlete.
Yeah.
So he doesn't show up at our sound check. He's not there. We do a sound check. We go to eat. We come back. I'm not sure whether we were on first or second, but we came back probably to hear Wayne's band or something, you know. And come back, and he's backstage with people from the street, and they're eating the backstage food, and thank God there was something for them to eat, because obviously they were hungry. And I'm there, and Gil Goldstein, the famous piano player, arranger, you know, grew up with, you know, was part of that, you know, when those cats were down in Florida, Matheny and those guys. He was hanging with them a lot, and he knew Jaco from forever.
Yeah, yeah.
And so he's there backstage. He came to see us with Chick, and I've recorded with Gil. He's amazing. He also helped produce, you know, the last Michael Brecker record, the last two Michael Brecker records that I'm on, Quintet and Pilgrimage. So we're sitting there, and I know he's around, and I'm saying, Gil, like, I don't know how to, you know, to process this. This is one of my big heroes, and you know, I'm freaked out. I'm really depressed, and I'm just sitting there. Like, he goes, "No, you have to meet him." And I was like, "Why? Like this? I don't know what can I?" You know, he said, "No, just do it." So we go into this little private area, like, and I have the space, the sixth string, the Ken Smith.
Oh, this is the Ken Smith. Yeah.
And I say, "Man, it's, you know, Jaco, you're one of my heroes," you know. And he goes, "I've been hearing about you, kid." He said that. It was like out of a movie. And I said, "Wow, whatever, man. Look, you know." I said, "You want to try my bass?" And he goes, "Sure." And he like played a few notes on it. He gave it back to me. He wasn't interested in the six. So, but then, which was startling, was we went and sat down at a table, and he did card tricks for us. And even in that state, the card tricks were incredible. We were like,
really?
How the heck? Yeah, really good. And I was like, well, the genius is still in there, you know?
Yeah.
But my heart was broken at that point.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it was the kind of thing. I remember Peter Erskine's dad, who was a psychiatrist, was trying to help him. They had him admitted at one point up in Bellevue, and they were, you know, Michael Brecker and a bunch of people were trying to help in any way they could. They were trying to get him straight, so that, because you know, when you have addictive behaviors and you get on substances to kill the pain of the deeper thing that was inside of them, the emotional and the spiritual and the mental pain. You have to try to handle one thing at a time. You can't fix it all in one go. And they were trying to do whatever they could, but he wouldn't stay on the meds either, because the meds were giving him side effects that he hated, and so he wouldn't take them. And I think they had him on lithium or something, different things, but it just didn't. He wouldn't take it, or you know, it's complicated. Mental health is a huge issue in our
Very
world,
complicated.
obviously, and you can't. It's not something you can fix overnight. And it's staggering for me, you know, in my work with my church too, because we're trying to help people in communities, and it's like that's when I get a little overwhelmed, because it's like I don't have a background.
Yeah, it's a complex problem.
It's complex, and I think the reality of it as well is that, you know, and obviously I think that Jaco Pastorius was a really, you know, a unique case in that he was really, really, really well established and well known in that specific area, you know, of bass and stuff. But like mental health is something that I think touches everybody, like everybody, like all, us three here, you know, like I know that I've sort of like, you know, had, and I think everybody has sort of like, you know, doubts and worries and stresses and stuff like that. And we all suffer at some point in our journeys as a human with mental health struggles, you know, whether, you know, that's losing a family member or, you know, whatever, you know, or
losing a gig.
Losing a gig or,
right.
You know,
I mean,
and I think
sure.
It's hard.
I mean, and also really even like, you know, honestly, you know, that's why my spiritual journey has been so important to me, because sometimes, you know, people don't understand, you know, even if things go really well and your dreams actually come true, then sometimes sometimes, you know, you have that like suffer from imposter syndrome. It's like,
of course.
Maybe I'm maybe I'm not that good, man. I got to work on some stuff, you know, and you get freaked out and, you know, I think, there's a couple things. Unless you focus on gratitude in your life, you can't control what comes at you. Circumstances will come at you. You'll have the joys and the sorrows will come. You'll have heartbreak. You'll have this and that. You can't control what comes at you and when it comes at you. But what you do have control about is how you respond.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's a growing thing. I mean, you know, I went through a lot. I had an early marriage when I was 24 that was a disaster. And I stayed in it because of my faith for 9.5 years. And when all that famous stuff was happening to me with Chick, my career was going. I was going
your family
through
life was
bad,
like.
I was going through a very bad scene. And then finally when I met Sachi, wow, the last 27 years have been amazing. We have two daughters. But I was... You know, at the height of it, with the height of the Chick part and everything was screaming. Yeah. Everybody was like, wow, and I was grateful and thankful, but I was also going through some of the toughest times of my entire life.
Yeah.
And that's when community matters. I had a community of people around me in my church, but also, you know, the guys in the band.
Yeah, for sure.
Chick and that was a big deal. I had guys that really, you know, and the guys that were in my band later on, like I just did that gig with Beasley last night. Beasley and I spent a lot of time together. Steve Tavoloni, Vinny, who I just spoke with on the phone the other night. I talk to them still, you know, and so, you know, my brother has been like a rock. My brother's a pastor, a great guitar player. He was my first teacher. You know, we talked about it in the lessons too.
Yeah,
he's like been amazing all my entire life, you know.
Yeah, it's so important to have people around you, isn't it, when you're sort of like going through those ups and downs, because you can see when some people don't have that, what can happen, you know. It's really tough for them. And somebody else as well, just to mention that, I think, you know, not to sort of like going down dark conversations, but another bass player that I think that really had a hard time with that was like Jeff Andrews. I think was an amazing bass player. Such an amazing talent, you know, and obviously had, you know, issues as well, you know, that for whatever reason ended his life early, you know. It was, I remember like 5 years ago that Jeff Andrews passed away, something like that.
At least, if maybe longer.
Yeah, was it at least? Yeah, maybe. Yeah. If anybody hasn't heard of Jeff Andrews, do yourself a favor, go check him out. Monster player.
Yeah, he was blasting. Really, you know, he was one of the few guys that I felt like we were traveling along that road of trying to really, you know, be expressive in terms of the way we approached playing over changes.
Yeah, for sure. Like when I listen to you, language, I can hear, you know, how many sax play. I can hear the thousands of hours of sax players that you've kind of like, you know, that you listen to,
like they washed over me. I didn't always write stuff down, but just hearing and assimilating language, and also doubling back. I hope that helps with the composition question. I know
love it. Yeah, it was really fun to hear you do that on piano to, and to just awesome. to know that it's not necessarily like, oh, always have the bass in the hand and play something, right? I feel like it's hard for you to answer that question because you've just been doing it for so long. There's music inside of you,
and I sing a lot of
the
stuff.
Voicings, you have, and so it comes to you. You're thinking it, you're singing it, you're out on a walk, and you're probably hearing something, humming it into your phone. I just think that is really important for people, like, to know about process.
Yeah.
That want to be artists, that want to be, composers, that wonder, how do you even start with a film score? And I saw the great John Williams will sit at a MIDI keyboard and plunk out a 3 or 4 note theme.
Well, there you go. You just gave me the 4-note theme. You guys, wrote the
you asked for it, John. Yeah. You asked for the 4-note theme, and then you turned it into something.
Let's call up Spielberg and tell him we've got it. We've got it for you.
Actually, it was a nice theme.
Well, you made it nice.
No, but intervallically. See, and it's funny. See, that was intuitive. That was not a theoretical, well, I'm going to go down a third and then go this. I didn't think about it that way. What you gave me, let me just make sure. Without even knowing it, was 2 third relationships, C sharp and A, and then G and E.
Yeah.
And so I didn't even think about it, but I went beta. I inverted. I started the G and came down to the minor third for the beta, and then that's what I did. And so that's a nice melody, and that's the thing. I learned from being around people like Wayne and Chick and all these great composers I play with. Freddie Hubbard wrote some nice tunes too, and all these people, Herbie, the whole idea, and I can boil it down to something that sounds crazy, reductively too simple, but Wayne's music, why it's so great is the melodies, you'll remember them because they're singable, and they're beautiful. But if you have a sturdy melody, just like, I've spent a lot of time in the church, I play in the worship band, but also even old church music, like if you look at one of those chorales like Bach wrote, and there's one like Sacred Head Now Wounded, like, it's like great melody, right? You can harmonize that in millions of ways because the melody is sturdy. So with Wayne, I noticed, and I used the same trick when I was harmonizing those notes. I know that I love 9s and 11s and those kind of sounds in the melody. So immediately I gravitate towards Wayne's World, where the melody is one of those notes that pulls you in like that.
Yeah.
Or it's an altered note in the chord, or it's a third, or it's a fifth, but the reason why people love all those piano players that come out of the gospel thing is they can reharm their tails off.
Yeah. Yep, that's right.
And when you hear those reharms, those melodies are really soulful and you remember those melodies. Yes. I tease my students sometimes, at school, because sometimes some of the students understand it, but others, they nerd out a lot. Like they'll write something in 17 or whatever, and you'll hear it and you'll go, okay, I literally will never, and I've been a musician all my life. I have a pretty good, pitch memory. I will never remember any of those melodies. It's like, it's like, okay, whatever. After it's done, you're like, I need a nap.
Right. It's John, like composition to impress.
Yeah. John, I've got 2 questions. Around like piano playing, and also another one, but I'll hit you with the first one.
Okay.
Like you just mentioned that you play in your church band.
Yes.
Like, what are the other musicians like in their band? And do you terrify them? Do you like rock up and they're like, oh no, here's John?
No, here's the weird thing. Here's the weird thing about where we go to church now. Now we first of all, I'm really proud of our church because it's the most diverse church I've ever been in. Usually it's one or the other. It's all one, particular race or whatever. This is all mixed up.
Yeah.
But because we're in New York, we have killing musicians.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I started going to this church, and then I started seeing people like, there are 3 locations now. We're in the one in Larchmont, which is close to, not far from where I live. It's like east of where I live. It's called Trinity Church. But when I first started going to the one up in Connecticut in Greenwich, I go to church and I see Joel Rosenblatt, the great drummer. He's playing in the band. There's a guy named Tony Cruz, totally grooving drummer. Great piano. I mean, it's crazy. The bass players are killing. All of them.
Absolutely.
All of them.
You've kind of spoiled it for me, because in my mind, I just had this picture of sort of like.
Well, they did get a little freaked out when I showed up. It's true.
Yeah.
But they did. Like the first time I came up,
oh no.
Like I came up to someone who was playing in the service after the service, they were like, But that for me, still, I gotta say, in all honesty, still. When that kind of stuff happens, sometimes it's really nice and everything, but sometimes it's hard for me to believe. I'm still, because of the way I was raised, I'm a kid from East Flatbush. My parents were Italian American, and they're a very strong, powerful family thing. And when they used to ask my mom, your son, oh my God, she goes, he's just my John, What's the problem here? So it's funny to me that I so much looked up to my brother, and then I have 3 sisters below me who are all like massively brilliant. And so,
of course, it's always weird for the person.
It's wild. I was raised in a certain way. So, and also it's weird for me that those dreams that I had, which were just dreams, actually happened.
Happened, and you played with, you played with the people.
I was telling my students the other day, and I think I might have told you this. I'm sorry if I've told you this before, and I'm telling you again. But the first gig with Chick, right?
Go for it, man.
So the first gig, I finally get the gig of my dreams, and he goes, "Oh yeah, by the way, here's the first gig." Okay, what is it, Chick? We're playing on the Merv Griffin Show. Oh, the Merv Griffin Show. Wow, that's nationally, syndicated television.
Yeah.
And it's you and me and Herbie, and Tommy Breckline's going to play drums, and I'm like, Herbie too? So there I am. I'm 25. I'm on the Merv Griffin Show. Like my parents were like, "Wow, Merv Griffin."
Wow. I was going to say your parents.
Yeah. All of a sudden, I guess he's all right then. He's doing okay. So I'm there, and I'm looking across the stage as we're rehearsing, and there's Chick Corea and Herbie Hancock. I'm like, wait a minute. Did I die? Am I in heaven, or where am I? How is this possible? My brother and I, who, we shared everything as the journey progressed. And, I always share everything. My brother's going to come visit me, actually. Is it next week or the week after? And we're going to hang,
Fantastic.
But, for us, we were kids with the records, listening to these cats and going, wow, we got to go see them. Maybe someday we'll be able to tell them how much we love them.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell them.
And then you're on the actual.
You come into right friends with them, so you can tell them all you want now. And it's like, what?
Yeah. Bonkers, man. My other question, John, was going to be around key skills, like playing piano, and whether. And just for context as well, like it's something that I've been doing recently over the last sort of like couple of years is actually like learning key skills, getting my voicings together and stuff like that. And I was talking to Ian about it the other day, and I was like, oh, I almost feel like even though I had like an understanding of harmony together, until I actually started learning some keys, I was kind of missing this whole reality that existed. And so my question was, when a student's working with you, do you specifically ask them, do they have key skills together? And
yes.
If not, are you recommending that they do get key skills together?
And drums.
Those
are the mandatory things.
Are they mandatory? Yeah.
I think. Because first of all, going back to the building blocks, first is rhythm, then there's sound, then there's ears, and then there's reading music too and all that. But the first thing is your rhythm is the transportation device. It's the transmitter for all the good stuff, right?
Yes.
Everything.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's not together, people are not going to want to listen to you because it doesn't feel good and it's like really confusing and it's jumbled and it's not happening. That's number one. The next thing is if your sound is not together, that's a problem. Because then even if you have a great feel, it's like, the sound is either too boomy, or is it too bright, or is it too aggressive, or is it too, it doesn't blend. Right, and that's partly technique, and then choices that you make because you're not really listening that hard and being critical about what your sound is. So there's that. Then there's the ear thing. Like, can you hear what's going on? And that's, so the drums are for the coordination of the internalization of the physical beat in your body, which you must have.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to play the drums at first. My dad wouldn't let me. I had bongos and stuff. And so
me too.
I have a drum set now, as you see over here. See?
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
Lucky man.
You know, and that's my vibe. I love the drums. So, but the piano thing helps you to hear better. That's the thing. What you just touched on is really key, what you just said. Even though you've been, you know a lot of stuff, people teach you the harmonic things. Like, what happens is, the problem with a lot of university educations is based on the European system. Either it's solfege or whatever. That doesn't help you on the bandstand when somebody goes, blam.
Got it.
You can solfege up and down all you want. If you don't know what that chord is, it's already too late.
Right.
Too late, gone, next chord. So you got to get chord recognition. But the beautiful thing about that, when you start learning voicing, is like, what I'll do is I say, all my students at Berklee, every time they come in for a private lesson or a group, 2 people in the room with me lesson, that's one of the things I bring up. Do you play any drums? Do you play any piano? Okay, if they say, well, I don't know. Okay, I get out. Sometimes I Xerox a bunch of sheets from this Bill Dobbins piano series book, volume 2, contemporary keyboard, or whatever it says, keyboard, whatever. And I give them a whole slew of voicings for them to sit and just play with. Again, if you don't read music, you can't look at those voicings, can you? Better learn.
Your stuff. Yeah.
And you better learn some treble clef too, otherwise you're screwed, right? You either can, and I learned that fairly early. And that, it's funny, even when I was a teenager, that got me a gig once, because my mentor, this guy, Chris Poehler in the Bay Area, he was doing a gig. The theater in San Francisco was a big deal, ABT or ABC or whatever that was. And he was doing this musical. But the composers were these guys, Eddie Sauter and Finnegan. Sauter and Finnegan were these incredible orchestrator guys that had this band many years ago. You're talking like the 40s and 50s or something like that. So they were the composers of this thing. And they wrote the bass book in treble. For some reason, they had it in treble. So my teacher was cool. He was on the gig, but he couldn't make a couple of nights, right? So he... And a lot of the guys around, like the old cats who were playing in the theaters, their treble clef was like, so he knew that my treble clef was good. And this is ironic, because this is the guy who was the worst sight reader in the history of all music. And when he made me learn how to read music, I got into it. But I was also already into piano. So I realized, I better get good on the treble.
Got it.
So that and also, because I would look at books with melodies and, and stuff and want to learn as much as I could about everything. Because I was not a school person. I was a person who, I learned some things at school, but I learned a lot more outside of school because I was voracious. I wanted to know just everything. I bugged and asked questions and got,
Yeah.
So the treble clef became important too. So when I give the students the things, it's going to inspire them. Hopefully, once you put your hand down on a good voicing like that, it changes your life. You go, wow. And this book, I'm at the point in my life now where I get really tired of my voicings. And then when I look at those books too, and sometimes the way the rootless voicings that are polychordal that piano players play, I'll show you one. Like everybody has a voicing that they hear for the sharp 9, sharp 5 one, and it's really stock, right?
Yeah.
So for years, you hear C7 with a sharp 9, sharp 5, and you hear this one. So that's the third, the sharp 5, the flat 7, and the sharp 9. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. So.
I was like, is a combo about to break out?
But, check how much hipper this sounds. Same chord.
Yeah.
So that's the root, the third, and the flat 7, that little cell with with the root in your left hand and the flat 7, or the root and the major 7, whatever. That's cell voicing, that, whatever they call those. Shell voicings too, they call them. So now I have C7, sharp 9, sharp 5. Root 3rd, flat 7. Sharp 9, sharp 5, root. Woo!
Oh.
And the other thing is then you start to learn that real piano players also use a lot of triads in their voicing. So it's an A-flat triad with the 5th and the bass. But I learned all this by ear at first, and then I learned how to explain it. The other thing that's cool is if you have a C7, the tritone triad, which would be G flat, against also works great. You go. So that's the G flat triad. So now you have flat 9, flat 5, C sharp and F sharp, and then you can go. And then you've got. Then you're on your way for the blowing too. You can go, Then it opens up a whole nother world. Piano opened up a whole nother universe for me, because then I started to understand what those sounds were that really inspired me. I didn't learn it. Yeah. I didn't learn it cerebrally and intellectually. I was driven to find those sounds by this.
That's been my experience. That's been my experience over the last sort of like 2 years, is that you hit the nail on the head there, is that, and it was, for me, it was just messing around with actually triads on top of triads, like putting triads and I heard all of the sounds that I was like, oh, yeah, that's that sound that I've heard, like, in a million different places, on records, on soundtracks, and that's what I was trying to tell you. And I was like, I was like, oh, that's that thing. And without like learning those sort of like basic key skills that have been learned over the last 2 years, that's what I feel like I really missed out on. So, man, well, at least I'm figuring it out. But because you can actually understand it, I understand it from a theoretical point of view. Yeah. But to your point, John, it's the when you hear the chord, if you don't know what it is, it's gone. And that for me has been a big deal over the last couple of years. So I wish I could go back and kick my ass into learning a lot more key skills a lot earlier.
Same, me too.
Well, and for me it was just accidental. And I'm just bummed out that I didn't get my chops together a little bit more, because I'm friends with Mike Pope. He can blow on the piano. He's got like chops.
Oh, dude, he's killing you. He's killing. Yeah. He's a freaking alien, dude. He can sort of like, he like designs circuits, and he can play piano, and he can he's nuts. And apparently, I can't remember who I was talking to as well, and they were like, oh, and by the way, he can take your engine to bits.
Oh, yeah.
Put that back together. He's sort of like
the pontiff. I call him the pontiff.
Yeah.
But so
he played with Chick, right?
Yes, I sort of helped get him that gig. He played for a minute, and
yeah.
But so I wanted to check and see with you guys. I mean, if there's anything more about the record you want to ask, because we were talking about all kind of stuff. But
yeah, it's been great. Like so my question to you actually, John, in terms of the record, is like what should we have asked about the record that we haven't asked?
I don't know, because I've been enjoying so much what we talked about instead. But we have.
Yeah, have we missed anything out?
I don't know.
If you could give us.
I think this record, for me, it's important to present not just the acoustic side, but my electric side, and not just my electric side, my acoustic side. I'm always, because I am truly in love with both of them. I'm not a doubler.
Yeah.
It's a different distinction for me. Some people say, well, I play this and then I double on this. I don't look at it that way. Both of them are essential.
I feel sorry for you in your travel situations. Yeah. That's all I'm saying.
Well, you just led me to a great question. You just dropped something on me. That's not my acoustic bass on this record.
Oh,
that was one that they had.
Is it not?
Yeah.
I was actually going to ask you. Yeah. I was going to say, did you take it out? Because if anybody's listening, John plays both the acoustic and the electric on this live record.
Yeah. So the acoustic bass usually this last summer when I went out with the Brazilian trio, I brought my old Pullman, which I had the neck off operation done many years ago, so it's in a smaller case.
Yeah.
It's actually, I can't pull it over here, but it's in the room with me. It's like, so it's like about 70 pounds total with the bass in it. So, but that tour, I didn't. He said, just bring your electric. We're going to be lean. We're going to travel in a van together, and we'll save a lot of money that way. And you guys will be able to put a lot more money in your pockets at the end, because you won't have to spend so much. You won't spend anything on overweight because of the bass.
Sure.
So we decided the first tour we were going to do it that way. And it was a pretty nice bass. It worked out pretty well. But, the thing is, when you work so hard to get a sound on your instrument, you realize you carry it with you. Yes, the instrument is a big factor, but it's not the overriding factor. I think it still sounds like me on that record, even though it's a different bass.
It absolutely does. Yeah. I was going to say, I thought it was your bass, and it's all about bone tone. I mean, right? It's your hands, your muscles, your sinew.
The sound you're going for in your head does matter. It sounds so abstract, but it's a huge factor.
I could not tell that was not your bass.
Were you kind of like bricking it were you bricking it when you like got that bass out for the first time and you were like, oh, we're going to record on this thing?
Yeah.
Like,
I was thinking like, okay,
is that kind of like ultra anxiety?
Will it be good enough? Can I get my thing on it? And it turned out pretty good, And the kudos to the Roberto Vigo who recorded the live stuff, and then of course John Davis knows my sound.
Yeah,
and the electric tone,
it's mixed beautifully.
Yeah, and the electric tone, I had to do it separately, right? I had a AB box. And I used the Grace preamp for the acoustic. So on that tour, that guy brought some nice big tube mic and stuff like that. But I also had, on that tour, I think I had an RE20 also, because for the outdoor gigs, to run through the Grace, because I run my mic through the amplifier, and I mix it with the pickup.
Got it, yeah.
So they were getting all that. I also have a 4021, a DPA that I use. And lately, I even bought a Sheps, the one that Grenadier and Scott Colley use. I have that. And also another DPA that's like about this big that you put on a mic stand. So now I have lots of mics. But on this one, we leaned heavily on the mic that I forget what mic he used. It was a tube mic. It was he was either a Neumann or something. So, then... So the Grace preamp, I plug the acoustic bass out of the Grace preamp into my little channel switcher, and that goes to the amp. The other part of the channel switcher is my 6-string straight into my HX Stomp Line 6 thing for the different sounds that I was using, which John Davis...
Is that, I was going to say, dude... is that what you were using, HX Stomp?
But program sounds by John Davis.
Which track is it? Which track is it where you're playing and there's like an octave?
Yeah.
I
think it's the intro to Mali.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, that's so cool.
That's HX. That's so cool.
And there's a reverb too there. And John came to my house before that tour, and actually before this last tour with the Brazilian trio, I said, "Come on over again," and we programmed some sounds into the HX so that I also have stuff that I didn't use because, I'm judicious about what I use with effects because I've been through the gamut.
Sure. Came
up with the small stone phase shifters and all the crazy, electro harmonics things and this and that and the freaking, what was that thing? The Mutron biphase, all that
big
stuff
Mutron.
in the 70s. And then with Chick, I even had one of those. Bradshaw rigs. It looks like a refrigerator with a giant pedal board. I went through the whole 9 yards. Then I moved to New York. I got rid of all that, and I didn't play with effects at all. And then I started to chip my way back in. Well, this is a way for me to travel with something small that has some sounds in it, and good sounds.
It's a cool box.
Really good sounds. So that was a sound, on the beginning of Mali. So when I play bomb, and it has a boop, like a harmonizer, an octave higher.
Yeah.
But it goes in time with you. So if you play good time, it starts this cascading thing, and you play another bass note, and then you have polyphony with yourself. Just from that octave.
It's freaking cool, dude.
Because the octave goes after the first note. Now you're on a second note. Now you've got a 10th or a third or, whatever.
Yeah, what struck me about it is it was more than just kind of like, I guess, sort of like an effect, is that I took away from, my experience listening to what it was actually sort of like a part of the composition itself. Yeah. And like really, it wasn't just like a delay or a reverb. Yeah. It actually added to the musical texture of the piece, which is why sort of like it really captivated me. And I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. Yeah.
Not just like you turned on a random stomp box.
Well, I'm trying to use them. Because there's so many guys that use them so beautifully. John Davis is insanely great with all those sounds. Tim Lefebvre, people that really make it, and the one person who never gets mentioned enough in my book is Doug Wimbish. That guy is a freak.
For sure.
His pedal board's the size of this room, and the stuff he gets is amazing. And he's an amazing bass player too.
Sure.
I'm a huge fan of him.
We were talking with him like 2 days ago, John.
Just like really?
This. Just like
man, if you talk to him again, tell him I love him, because I think he's amazing. And he gets sounds, he gets like stuff that's like, whoa.
He did a big demo for me, John, on this tune called Wall, which is the last tune on the first Living Colour record he played on, called Stained, which I think is a masterpiece.
I have to check it out.
But he has this bass intro, John, it's incredible. It's one of the coolest bass intros. Tune is called Wall. It's unbelievable. He uses a whammy pedal and delay, and he makes this incredible, like, rising monster sound that then Will Calhoun is in on the drums, and it's incredible.
See, that's the way you should use it.
He's an architect.
Yeah, that's the way you should use it, and that's why I want to use it in the way I play. So I have to be careful. If I use too much stuff, it gets in the way.
Yes.
So I have to kind of, like, I love the way Victor Wooten uses a looper. He's masterful.
Yeah, he's great.
And sometimes, I've been around him a lot, so we, played together and stuff. So, this is kind of a way of me doing something that's quasi-looping, but I don't have to do all this tap dancing. I just turn it on and I play.
Do you do any stuff like that on your upright, John? Do you do anything like...
I've done some stuff in the past, like when I was doing the solo gigs for the heart soul of the bass. There's this one tune called Mystery of the Soul, where there's some real deep reverb on there and some stuff like with the harmonics, so that... I mean, when we did the record, if I really wanted to do it just like the record, I have to get some other delays in the chain and do some stuff, because it was really sophisticated what John did in the studio there, and it was beautiful, because my idea is to make it organic sounding. The effects should be part of the music. Having said that is exactly what I hope for. If it's part of the music, the effects sound like it's compositional use of effects, not just like, oh, look, dude, I got this cool bunch of sounds. Check it out. I don't want that. So thank you for noticing. Yeah. And I was really trying to get, when I'm switching back and forth, the hardest thing for me is to make sure the tones are really exactly what I want on both instruments. Because I keep going back and forth in the middle of a thing. I'm not just set up on one thing. So that's always a challenge.
Yeah, well, I think just sort of like switching back. Like, I don't play upright. I was an upright owner for a short time, but I can't imagine what it's like to even have to switch back and forth between two instruments, especially on a gig. And just we were speaking. Like, I texted you, was it yesterday? And I was like, do you want to do like an upright course for SBL? Because I think that, I think it would be an incredible, we get asked about it a lot. That's the, that's the headline.
So we can give the people what they want.
A lot. Exactly. And I think it's because it's such an incredible instrument, but to go from, if you've only played electric before, to playing an upright, there's a learning curve, right? Like, I think that there are obviously similarities, but there are some sort of like big jumps as well in terms of like how you finger and stuff like that. Like
physicality.
Yeah. For people listening right now, John, and they might want to obviously go check out your record, and then afterwards hopefully be inspired to, hey, I might want to explore the upright as an instrument. that they get into in the future. And for all of the people in our community that have messaged already and said, hey, I want to learn more about upright, what would you say is sort of like a few tips that you could share for electric players thinking about moving and exploring upright?
Well, again, rhythm and sound are your first destinations. So, but technique affects rhythm and technique affects sound too. Because sound production,
big time,
and the way you do it will affect your ability to control the rhythm. That's where it gets physical. On electric, you're not using your forearm weight like you do with the upright, where with the bow or pizzicato, you're using all of this. You don't do that when you play electric bass. Maybe you use your wrist and your forearm a little bit, but it's not like, so I teach them, and we're going to do this. We're going to do new curriculum. Because I want to do, I can do a lot of the good things about curriculum I've done in the past other places, but I want to do something special where, again, we revisit, first of all, the different picking styles. I say, okay, first thing you got to do, it doesn't matter what you do with your left hand if your right hand is not working, even though I'm lefty. And the converse is true.
Back to front,
if you have a great right hand, your left hand is not. The left hand is a huge part of the sound on the upright, as it is on the electric. So here's my primer. The first thing you got to do is, okay, there are several different picking styles with the right hand. There's one finger Ray Brown. There's two finger Ron Carter, where you use the big finger, which is longer for everybody. Notice it's longer than the first finger. That is used for weight. I'm not touching the string with it, but you see Ron do this kind of thing, and it sounds really together.
He's picking with his index finger.
The index finger is hitting the string, but the other finger's back for weight. Some people go as far as like Peter Washington. You see people doing this, and they only hit the thing. This is hitting a little bit. Then there's the guys who use. One of my students recently showed me something that he learned from my buddy Gerald Cannon, who's a great bass player, and he'll sometimes do two like this, and where the two actually interact with the string. I don't do that. I do the Ron Carter. So then there's Ray Brown. Then there's the Ronish one. Other guys use it too, but I always think of Ron because he's got big fingers. And it helps me remember. Then there's this other one that the two. So now there's going to be 5, believe it or not. So Ray Brown 1, Ron, with this for weight, but this one is hitting. Then the one where you can pull on the string. If you don't have to do something really fast, this is kind of a thick sound. For some people with smaller fingers, it really helps because you're coming across, and you do a rest stroke, just like in classical guitar. You pull through the string and you rest on the string below. You don't flail at the string from the exterior. It's not a classical pizzicato where you go boom and pull away. It's through the string. So 1 Ray Brown, 2 Ron, this third one Gerald Cannon. Some people use. Then there's the one where I have to stand up to do it. Your fingers are pointing down, but you're alternating. You are alternating.
And who does that kind of thing?
Everybody.
Does everybody do that? Everybody does that.
Paul Chambers, that works great. You see McBride do this a lot. My only caveat with that is when I have to play something fast, I don't always want to use this because this dictates where I'm going to play too much. And I'll show you why. This is what I use when I have to really play fast. And it's like electric. But for years, it wasn't thick enough. And then I finally started using the forearm weight and started to do this and really feel this dancing in there as opposed to just using my fingers without wrist and forearm. See, there's a big difference from this.
That's so interesting,
really engaging the weight. So there's like 5 already.
It reminds me of a drummer. Do you know when a drummer plays the hi-hat?
Yeah.
They're not just doing this. Mm-hmm. There's that pumping motion when they play the hi-hat. You're getting 2 for the price of 1.
Yeah, and there's certain things you can't play unless you turn your finger out. Like if you're going like that kind of a thing, you can't do that this way.
You can't do it like this.
You have to go this way. Mm-hmm. And there's an example of having played the electric where it's an advantage.
right? For sure.
Got it. Yeah.
There's an example.
Yeah. So the physicality of playing the upright is really important.
It's big,
isn't it?
because if you don't engage the weight, a lot of electric bass players make the fatal mistake of, oh yeah, I'm going to play acoustic now. So they set the action down really low. And maybe at first you're going to have to do that anyway, because it's a big deal. I mean, I went through this. I started electric when I was 10. Yeah. I wasn't even big enough to hold an upright until I was 15. So,
wow.
So there it is. You know, there's this big physicality to it, you know. But if you don't really start using these things, you get those electric bass players that have the strings really low and they play just with the finger weight. There's not even wrist and forearm enough.
And you get like a super thin sound.
And there's no sound.
Fat and organic.
Literally no sound. They crank up the amp and they go. And that's, you know, if you're going to do that, you might as well just play electric and play fretless.
Fretless. Just get a fretless,
You know, because you're negating the whole, you know, the whole sonic beauty of this thing that vibrates against your body. And it's like, if you're not using that, then it's kind of not happening. So
I'm so excited for doing. Like, I'm really excited about putting this. I think it's going to be freaking awesome.
I am too.
And also, as well, just for anybody that's you know, wanting to, I guess, investigate this as well. John, what would you? Because for me, it was incredibly important as an electric bass player to be inspired by the people that were freaking awesome. You know, yourself. I went and listened to Jaco. I went and listened to James Jamerson, like all of these incredible musicians. Give me three upright bass players that the community should go check out immediately after they've listened to your album.
For me, it was. And not in order, because they're both equal, like Ray Brown and Ron Carter. I think Ron Carter maybe for playing into the more modern styles was hugely important. Ray raised the bar incredibly high for everyone. And so Ray and Ron were my entry point. But then I went back
let me just dig in, just double click on that as well. For Ray, who like, if somebody's like, I want to go check out
Oscar Peterson records. Oscar Peterson.
Okay.
The trio live.
And how about Ron Carter as well?
How I first heard him was on West Montgomery Records. Killing. Tequila, Down Here on the Ground, California Dreamin'. Those are 3 records right there. So Much Guitar, another record that he's on. And also, there's the incredible Ron Carter's the most recorded acoustic bass player. So, but there's a record that he did with Stanley Turrentine and Shirley Scott. Now, Stanley Turrentine, the great tenor player from Philly, he was married to Shirley Scott, who was a jazz organ player. And they have this record called Let It Go. The Ron Carter bass lines on that record, insane. Also, I would say after that, I went backwards. I mean, I was so into them, but I also went back. Paul Chambers, incredible, those records with Miles. Also the record called We Three with Phineas Newborn and Roy Haynes. Paul Chambers, I mean, his records, his solo records, everything. Great, innovator, killing. Also, people that influenced Ray and Ron were like, you know, Ray was definitely influenced by Jimmy Blanton and also Oscar Pettiford. Then I went back and I got into those guys too. Incredible when you think about when they were playing and how young they were.
Oh, dude, the one that screws me over every time when I think about it is Scott LaFaro.
Well, Scott LaFaro too. He had only played bass for 5 or 6 years. He was playing saxophone before.
How old was he?
He was in his 20s.
How old was he when he died?
He was in his 20s.
He was 26.
Yeah. In a car wreck. And you know, the first road gig that I ever did was with Gap Mangione, the pianist, who was Chuck Mangione's brother. And Gap was hanging out with Scotty that night up in Rochester, which is quite a drive to New York City. Maybe 6 to 8 hours. I don't know. Something like that. Ian, do you know? Aren't you
I don't. Actually, I don't know.
I confusing you with somebody else that I know who grew up there. But it's really long.
Ian, get your New York chops together.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay.
You big old letdown.
So the other thing is, so Gap was with him and he said, Scotty, why don't you just crash at my house tonight? Don't drive back to the city now. It was after a gig and they were hanging out. And Scotty was straight as an arrow. He didn't drink and didn't do drugs.
Yeah.
So he died because he fell asleep at the wheel. He didn't stay at Gap's house that night. He decided, no, I got to get back to the city. And he drove back and he crashed. And we lost him.
How old did you say he was, Ian? 26?
I said 26, I thought.
And we lost him.
Yeah.
And
he was like a real sort of like trailblazer at the time, wasn't he? The stuff that he was doing with Bill Evans was like
that
really
was new.
It was out there.
And
it was new, He wasn't like just keeping time.
No,
he was almost like a
contributing melodies.
Yeah.
And also I have to say, and he was great. I actually, everybody used to say, "Oh, you must have you sound like you really listened to him." Actually, I wasn't as influenced by him as I went by Eddie Gomez. I saw Eddie Gomez play with Bill Evans.
Eddie's amazing.
And in his prime, he was amazing too. But yes, he was probably influenced by Scotty.
Yes.
So,
for
but
sure.
here's the other thing. That contrapuntal playing that he plays, this is another thing about Ron Carter that's so amazing. Ron Carter had his own version of contrapuntal playing with Miles. And that kind of bottom-up counterpoint is what I try to get my students to do. Because a lot of times they're trying to do the mid and the top down, sort of like Scotty in a trio. Yes, that can work. But in other situations, you don't hear the bottom enough. With Ron, sometimes he was playing up there too, but he'd have a low note ringing and he would jump up there and you would never lose the bottom, but you had all this stuff. The stuff he's doing with Tony while Miles and Wayne and Herbie are exploring is insane. So he was also a major counterpoint guy. And sometimes I don't think he gets enough credit for that part of breaking up the time. The other guy who did that?
Yeah, because
Jimmy Garrison. Jimmy Garrison, one of my biggest influences. One of my biggest. I mean, I could name a lot of guys that just, then I heard Dave Holland, then I heard Charlie Hayden, then of course I heard Niels Henning Ørsted Pedersen, and the list goes on and on. Then I got hip to this guy that I always forget his name, and I gotta get it for you. Okay.
Who'd you play with?
He's a guy that recorded with Sonny Rollins too, and he's also on Out of the Afternoon with Roy Haynes. Let's see if you Google that. This guy's important. Now we lost him for many years. He disappeared because he had mental health issues, and then he was refound, and then he was in New York at the end of his career playing again. This guy was a complete virtuoso, soulful, grooving.
Was it Henry Grimes?
Henry Grimes.
Henry Grimes.
Well done.
A total freak on the bass. Unbelievable.
Really?
Yes.
All right.
And he died more recent years. So he's another one. Freaked me out. Really freaked me out. When I finally discovered, like when I moved back to New York around 96, there was a guy who's now passed on. His name was Phil Schaap, and he used to do a daily jazz show called Bird Flight about Charlie Parker. But he would also do these amazing birthday shows. Like we would play the music of somebody whose birthday it was that week for the whole week and go really in like on their discography. And he was playing some Sonny Rollins one time and Henry Grimes was on the record. And it was like Henry Grimes and Sonny Rollins, maybe it was Roy Haynes. And all of a sudden the bass started blowing. First of all, the sound was huge and he was grooving and then he started blowing and I went, uh-oh. What? I almost got in a car wreck.
I freaking love those moments.
I'm driving into
those
Manhattan,
moments when your reality
on the West
changes.
Side Highway.
Yes.
And I'm like,
Amazing.
So those are some guys that I listen to.
It's so cool. Oh, man. Hey, John, go on, Ian, go for it.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead, Scott.
Hey, you ask your question, Ian. I'm just going to let George out for a pee. Podcast listeners, hold on. I'm just taking the dog out.
Yeah. No problem.
Go for it, Ian.
Well, I was just going to say, John, you've been so gracious with your time. I'm just curious and we get to this point in the pod, I'm curious, how can we best support you? You have been talking so much about all these players, talking about all these names, these wonderful people you've played with, these huge influences. Now it's time for you to talk to us, give people the URLs, give people the socials, give people the things that you want them to check out. How can we as a community, an SBL community, be supporting you moving forward?
I guess like what we alluded to before when a lot of people who are bass players say, man, your stuff is so inspiring. You got to keep making records. If possible, instead of just streaming, buy the record on, it's only like $6 or $7, but I don't know what it is, but it's buy the record on iTunes or Tidal or whatever, instead of it just being streamed, because it takes a lot of streams to make any money, and then support the YouTube channel. I guess that's the biggest thing now, because basically if you really want to help, basically my target now is to get the YouTube channel. I'm going to be putting up some, little mini education bites, but I can't wait to get in the studio with SBL. And again, I'm really excited about that. But I'm going to put little stuff on my YouTube channel. The more people feed that by just listening, eventually I'll get the ads will start rolling in, and I'll be able to make some money on that too.
And we find you via John Patitucci on YouTube, right? And is it the same also on Instagram?
I think it's John J. Patitucci on Instagram. Let me double check that.
Okay. I was just asking Scott.
John J. Patitucci on Instagram.
Okay. How we move forward in support of Mr. Patitucci. He's been so gracious with his time. How do we move forward and support him as a community?
So what I was saying is, if you want me to keep making records, the best thing you can do is, because literally, I'm going to be honest with you, whenever whatever money we make from these records, we put in a savings account so we can make another one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, literally, that's my wife is great, and we've managed to now, as an independent company, we're doing a lot better than when we had the big label thing, because of the times have changed, right? But if you want to help, buy the record for $7 or $8, whatever it is, on iTunes or Tidal or something, instead of just streaming it on Spotify. Although, stream away, that helps, because I'm building up, cash so that I can monetize, and that helps me a lot if you do that.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
I always tell my students, be careful about how you consume music, because you grew up in an age now where you think music is free. Now, when you want to make records and you want to make music, your music will be free. And how are you going to make a living doing that? I don't know. So you got to be really clever.
It's super tough, isn't it?
Think about it.
Yeah. So something else as well, John, before you go, that Nick mentioned is that you'd asked about like releasing.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I heard Shrimp and Grits,
I would freaking love to do that.
When I heard the track of Shrimp and Grits, I went, that's not on any of my records. And the way that band, you talk about projects. When I saw that the other day, I went, okay, quartet record. There it is. A quintet record. There it is. Nate.
It sounds freaking awesome.
Well, is it six? Maybe it's six people, because there's me, Nate, John Coward, Adam Rogers, and Chris. Is that it?
Chris is on it as well.
5.
Chris Potter, yeah.
5. It's a quintet record.
So if anybody doesn't know, because obviously there's a lot of members listening to this podcast, but some of you won't be members of SBL. John's done a bunch of courses for us, and they're really fantastic, because what he does is he's actually composed songs and he breaks down the songs. The whole course is there to actually the song is almost like the end goal for the student to really get into the song and end up performing. So John performed these songs. He's got this sort of all-star band in the studio, and then you break that song bit by bit down, don't you, John? You talk about the techniques and how you're approaching it, and you were talking about actually releasing the songs from the courses.
Yes.
I think it's just such a great idea.
So cool.
Yeah. We should definitely
do it.
No, I want to partner with you guys, because I really believe in what you're doing. And my only question was, would this be something that would be viable for you? Because I didn't want to ask something that wouldn't be fair, and then other people would say, well, why aren't you doing that for me? And and I don't want to open a can of worms, but I do. When I heard
open the can, John.
When I heard that Shrimp and Grits,
all of those tracks,
I went, wait a minute.
I think it's just. I think it's a total no-brainer. I think it's a no-brainer. I really do. I think it's a no-brainer. Just we should get those tracks.
Or we could do singles if you want,
you
release or
or singles. Yeah, you mentioned that earlier. Actually, doing singles. And man, there's probably a whole conversation in there as well. A friend of mine is actually really dialed into, I guess, sort of releasing music in this kind of era that we find ourselves in right now.
Short attention span.
He's actually really into the idea of singles and EPs over albums some of the time. Not all the time, but he said there's a place for them now.
I mean, there were some tunes that we had to eliminate from the live record. There's a live version from Alba of Messiaen's Gumbo, the funky kind of New Orleans thing with Brian and Chris that's pretty strong, and we couldn't release it with the record because we decided that we wanted to keep it because of attention span also, but also we thought it's a nice chunk at 52. There's that one thing that's sort of like a medley where the tunes kind of ran into each other.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then we didn't want to add another 10 minutes to the record, or
you thought it felt perfect as it was.
Yeah. So there is a place for that.
Oh, let's do it.
Let's do it. Dudes, I'm going to bounce.
Yeah.
It's like 2 hours 10 in. I freaking absolutely love this conversation. I'm not sure
It's been
George
so
down
fun.
here. George is down here. Poor George.
George the dog is like, man, come on.
Yeah.
He's like, freaking feed me.
You even got to see the old bass, you know?
Yeah, I know. It was so
the
cool.
Ken Smith came out.
So cool.
So
I'm so glad that you got that
it's
bass
pretty
back.
nice.
Go on, John.
No, but I mean, let's get this acoustic bass curriculum together. I'll bring in a trio or a quartet.
It'd be amazing.
But we can, you know, because obviously it would be fun to write some new songs for the thing. Because this is the thing for the people out there. What I want you guys to do is get the sense of real world in this. And that's what SBL is so great at. But for me, I've done a lot of, educational things, but you need to see how we think and why we make choices, and how the note lengths and everything and things we choose make the feel happen in real time. I mean, that's the one thing about Shrimp and Grits. You can see it in the video, but also we break it down and I say, look, it's this kind of a groove. And I think that
it's
means
so cool
more
to be able to do all of that. Yes.
Than just like,
agree,
okay, this is the way you do this. And
no, you have to demonstrate. It's about execution as well. It's not just about breakdown. And that's what you have a really amazing ability, of course, to do both things. Execute because you're an artist, and break down because you have an educational heart as well. And that's huge. That's what we want
thank you.
at SBL.
And also, I think, it doesn't make sense to teach in a vacuum outside of performance, because the whole goal is to get you to the point where you can be a team player in a group. And so you can't, that's why, after a while I got really tired of doing like bass clinics by myself. Because like, it's artificial.
Yeah.
It doesn't show me in the context where I live. I live standing next to a drummer in my life, or, also playing in a chamber orchestra or whatever. I play with people. I don't go around the world playing solo concerts, although I've done some solo concerts and it was great, a little terrifying. But, we're bass players. We thrive in ensembles.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and it'll be so fun to show that on Upright.
Yeah, and I was thinking about the piano players too. I mean, we could do a segment with.
To get myself an Upright.
What's that?
I said, might just have to get myself an Upright.
Hey, you can get one. And the other thing too is maybe we could do a piano. We could do a piano trio day and a guitar trio day.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
That'd be really great. Let's keep this conversation going, John. And I'll also message Nick about it. Shout out to Nick behind the scenes.
Nick Wells.
He organizes all the production
Nick
stuff.
Wells.
Mr. Nick Wells.
Connor was on earlier too. Shout out to Connor.
And what about that brother who is originally from the New York area? I'm thinking about this other cat who was at the studio with us and who's a great guy. Is it Aaron? No.
Oh, there's Eric. There's Aaron.
Aaron's from
Jonathan
he lives down in Atlanta now or someplace. Where was he?
He's just moved to Spain. He's living in Spain.
In Spain.
Because he did a lot of R&B stuff too,
Spain.
right? He did a lot of. He was living in Atlanta.
Yeah.
He's another cat who's another part of the. The nice thing about the SBL cats is all these bass players. I love it. Also, Jonathan Herrera.
Herrera.
Jonathan.
He came one time, and then we had all these guys. And Eric is still around too. He's doing stuff. Eric?
Yeah, Eric's still around.
And
yeah.
I mean, it's great, you guys.
I do feel like I'm going to put it out there. When we have sort of like team meetings on the Monday, I feel slightly sorry for anybody that's not a bass player. If there's any sort of like bass jokes going on, because like for the most part, I think that the team is maybe like 90% bass players.
It's bottom heavy. Come on now.
bottom heavy, dude. Yeah, big
and
time.
We'll talk about
time.
this. We'll talk about this in the next meeting, man. This was so
Let's
fun.
do it. Let's do it. Let's get a thing on.
Yeah.
Trio is next. We'll do, or if you want a horn player too, we'll have to do that too. I mean, it's easy to get great horn players here in New York. Maybe we can grab the Master Potter one more time.
Yeah. Oh, dude, he's incredible.
He's a freak.
I was listening to him.
He's a total freak. Listen, that's why I want to tell people, if you want to hear some great music, don't even listen to me on the record. Just listen to Potter and Blade, and you'll be happy.
Yeah, and Blade. It's incredible. Yeah, it really is. Yeah. So the
He's
Live in Italy record,
show,
check it out right now. It's on all the streaming platforms. But if you want to support more, buy the downloads on iTunes. Who knows?
Apple Music, is it, or iTunes?
There might be physical.
Sure iTunes. Yeah.
Apple Music.
If it does well enough, I will. If it does well enough, then we'll have some money to make a vinyl thing. Yeah. It's expensive to make the vinyl.
Dude, stick it on vinyl. Yeah. Stick it on vinyl, dude.
Because the cover.
Anyway, dude, thank you so much.
Shout out to Lyra Blade. Lyra Blade did the cover art.
Oh yeah, Lyra Blade as well.
Brian's wife. Killing
that. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for listening, everybody. John, thank you. Ian, thank you. We will see you next time.
Okay, man.
Take it easy.
All right, bye-bye.
See you in a bit.
Cheers,
bye,
everybody.
Guys.